Announcing the arrival of Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin Abu Bakar, accompanied by Fatin Sajida binti Dato Abdul Shakur and Muhammad Izzat bin Abdul Halim. And now, we would like to call upon Arif Fitri from the University of Sydney, Australia, to recite the Dua.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Hamdan yuafi ni'amahu wa yukafihu mazidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhika wa azim sultanik. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma ya Allah, pada pagi yang berkat lagi bersejarah ini, sempena National Aspiration and Leadership Symposium 2014 kali yang kedua, kami menandatangkan dan bersyukur kehadratmu di atas nikmat limpah kurniaanmu yang tidak terhingga ke atas kami, sehingga kami dapat hidup dengan aman, damai dan harmoni, serta dapat melaksanakan tugas-tugas kami di muka bumi ini. Kami juga memohon, jadikanlah majlis kami pada hari ini majlis yang engkau berkati, dan perpisahan kami selepas ini perpisahan yang engkau ampuni dan redai. Ya Latif ya Rahman, kurniakanlah kami taufik dan hidayahmu. Bimbinglah kami ke arah kejayaan, keamanan, kecemerlangan dan kesejahteraan di dalam kehidupan kami di dunia maupun di akhirat. Jadikanlah kami orang-orang yang bertakwa, sentiasa mematuhi perintahmu dan menjauhi laranganmu. Ampunilah dosa dan ketelanjuran kami, dan jadikanlah kami orang-orang yang berada di dalam keridhaan-Mu jua. Ya Sattar ya Alim, kepadamu ya Allah kami pohonkan keselamatan dan kesejahteraan kami, pemimpin-pemimpin kami. Hindarkanlah negeri dan negara kami dari segala bahaya bencana. Tanamkanlah di hati kami sifat sabar, tabah dalam menghadapi ujian dan dugaan-Mu ya Allah. Ya Allah, terimalah segala kerja dan khidmat bakti kami dengan sempurna dan dikira sebagai amal ibadah kami kepadamu jua. Kami juga memohon perlindungan darimu dari segala perkara yang boleh mencacat celakan majlis kami dan dari segala perkara yang melalaikan kami dari berbuat taat kepadamu. Ya Allah, kepadamu jua kami serah segala urusan kami. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, Arif Fitri. Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin, Minister of Youth and Sports, Chairman of BN Youth and Member of Parliament Rembau. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Sharif bin Hamid, Bureau Secretary of the UMNO Overseas Club. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Megat Firdaus bin Tan Sri Megat Junid, Bureau Member of the UMNO Overseas Club. On Hafiz, Vice President of UMNO Youth Exco Malaysia. Fatin Sajida Abdul Shakur, Co-Director of NALS and former President of UMNO Club Australia, Queensland. Muhammad Izzat bin Abdul Halim, Co-Director of NALS. Dato, Chairman of UMNO Overseas Club, Chairman of Student Advisory Council across Malaysia, Student Committee of UMNO Overseas Club, Committee of Student Advisory Council across Malaysia, and participants of the National Aspiration and Leadership Symposium. First of all, we would like to extend our warmest welcome to the delegates and express our biggest gratitude for making time to be here with us today.
We would also like to welcome all participants from universities across Malaysia as well as from the overseas, namely Australia and New Zealand.
I, Muhammad Ashraf bin Muhammad Khalid from the University of New South Wales, Australia,
and I, Wanrul Atika binti Wan Bahadur from UiTM Shah Alam,
will be your host for today.
As an introduction, NALS is an annual initiative event gathering both local and overseas Malaysian student leaders to engage in a dialogue with Malaysia's distinguished figures, ranging from leaders of the government, the private sector, civil society, and youth leaders. Now, to continue our event today, I'd like to call upon Fatin Sajida binti Dato Abdul Shakur, the NALS co-director, for her welcoming speech representing NALS 2014 committee.
Fatin Sajida, the stage is yours.
Well, I hope everyone can see me very clear from here. Melati kuntum tumbuh melata, sayang merbah di pohon cemara. Assalamualaikum mulanya kata, saya sembah pembuka bicara. Ingin rasa memakan kari cendawan batang keladi, girang rasa tidak terperi, bertemu tuan yang baik sudi. Yang berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin, Minister of Youth and Sports, Chairman of BN Youth and Member of Parliament Rembau. Yang berbahagia Datuk Sharif bin Hamid, Bureau Secretary of the UMNO Overseas Club. Yang berbahagia Datuk Megat Firdaus bin Tan Sri Megat Junid, Bureau Member of the UMNO Overseas Club. On Hafiz, Vice President of UMNO Youth Exco Malaysia. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, they all future leaders. First and foremost, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partner, the UMNO Overseas Club, NALS 2014 committees and volunteers for all their hard work and tremendous effort that they have put in. Hats off to everyone. Also, this event will not be a success without the dedication of our committee together with our experienced advisors. And thank you for being with us, joining us, and supporting our beginnings. I would like to also extend my deepest gratitude to our main sponsors, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Malaysian Institute of Account, MIA, and Virtual Youth Resource Center. Thank you so much for all your generous support. Ladies and gentlemen, National Aspiration Leadership Symposium, which is NALS, is an annual initiative event gathering both local and overseas Malaysian students, leaders to engage in a dialogue with Malaysia's distinguished public figures, ranging from leaders of the government, the private sector, civil society, and youth leaders. Our main mission is to allow students leaders to keep in line with the current development of Malaysia. It is our sincere hope that at the end of this day, NALS is able to empower the next generation of Malaysians, bring forward the visions and remarkable thoughts of youth, together in shaping the future of our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I would like to welcome all of you to NALS 2014. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fatin Sajida, for the speech. We begin our agenda today with an opening speech by Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin. As a brief introduction, he is the Minister of Youth and Sports, Chairman of Barisan National Youth, and the head of the youth wing of the UMNO Party. He is also the member of Parliament Rembau Division. With utmost respect, I would like to call upon Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin to deliver his words on the topic, Youth Parliament Channeling the Voices of Young Malaysians.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan salam satu Malaysia. Terima kasih saudara dan saudari pengacara majlis. Yang bahagia Datuk Sharif selaku pengurusi Sekretariat Klub UMNO Luar Negara bagi pihak UMNO Malaysia, yang bahagia Dr. Wasitah, Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif IRIS ataupun Institut Pembangunan Pendidikan Belia Malaysia, Institute for Youth Research Malaysia, Datuk Megat Firdaus, Jurusul Politik, Menteri Belia dan Sukan, Saudara On Hafiz, Pengurusi Biro Pengajian Luar Negeri Pergerakan Pemuda UMNO Malaysia, Saudari Fatin Sajida Abdul Syukur dan Saudara Muhammad Izzat Abdul Halim, Co-Directors for NALS 2014. Seterusnya, saudara-saudari yang saya hormati sekalian. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the committee today for organizing the National Aspiration and Leadership Symposium, NALS 2014. It is indeed a pleasure for me to speak to all of you here this morning and to be back at NALS. I participated last year, and last year was a great success. And first of all, I'd like to commend the organizing committee, in particular both Fatin and Izzat, for organizing this year's symposium, which has seen the attendance grow tremendously, and this is indeed a spectacular success for the committee. Thank you and congratulations. The fact that you're all here early on a Saturday morning is testament to how seriously you take issues that we face as a nation today, and I do hope that we can work together to solve them, both you and I together, because as the Prime Minister says very often, the days of the government knowing best is over. We don't look at problems and look at ourselves, i.e. the government, as the one and all only source of solving the problems for today. We have to crowdsource ideas. We have to ask the public what they think. We have to ask the young people how they would view problems in the world and in our country today and how to go about solving them. I'll first talk about how Malaysians of your generation are different from the ones that came before you and highlight issues I believe are facing young Malaysians today, before moving on to address how an initiative like the Youth Parliament or Parliament Belia will help frame many of those issues for us, the government, as policymakers, as per the topic given to me by the organizing committee. First, some statistics on young people or youth in this country, in Malaysia today. 9.1 million people, Malaysians, are below the age of 30. And a staggering 6.3 million Malaysians are below the age of 25. 60% of youths are Bumiputra youths, 20% are Chinese, 10% are Indian, with the 10% of youth remaining coming from the Line group. 74.1% reside in urban areas and 25.9% reside in rural areas. Now this is a staggering figure, and this is indicative of the rate of urbanization that has been taking place in Malaysia over the last 10 to 15 years or so, where you see almost 75%, almost 3/4 of our young people living in urban areas as opposed to rural areas, I think is a tremendous indication of how fast urbanization has come in Malaysia and how fast young people are residing, moving, or living in urban areas. And I think this is one of the most important trends for policymakers in the coming future, where we understand how cities work, we understand how urban centers work, and we engage with people in the cities. And this poses a challenge on its own. I think if you were to look as a policymaker for us in government, when we look at rural areas, it's very easy, or easier, so to speak, to engage with people in the rural areas, to engage with them and to organize policies and programs with people in the rural areas, because there's a set structure in the rural areas. For instance, dekat kampung, we have Jawatan Kuasa Kemajuan Kampung, JKK. Easy for us to deal with JKK, easy for us. There's a structure there, there's an organizational structure, there's something that we are used to. We know all the Ketua Kampung or the Pengusi JKK. I'm a Wakil Rakyat, I'm a member of parliament from an area which is both urban and rural. And I tell you that dealing with the rural area is much, much easier because of the structure that has been there for many, many years. And that's enabled us to service the rural areas extremely well. But in the urban areas, and half my constituency is urban area, in Seremban, Paroi, Senawang, it's a bit more difficult because we don't have the structures that the rural areas have. It's very, very different. And you don't necessarily have people who are from that area. They are people who've migrated into that area, people who have urban migration. So for instance, in my kawasan Parliament Rembau, in the kampung areas, there's very much that sense of belonging, that sense of you are from Rembau. But in the urban areas, in one of my kawasan Dewan Undangan Negeri, kawasan Paroi, there's no such thing as having that sense of identity or belonging, because they may be from other places. They may have migrated to my constituency, Senawang, Paroi, from other places, Kuala Pila, from Jelebu, and it makes it a bit more difficult because there's not that sense of identity, that sense of belonging. There's rather that sense of transience that they've come and they've lived there just recently. So urbanization, I think, is one of the most important phenomenon, one of the most important demographic shifts in Malaysian politics today that policymakers must be aware of. Now, the statistics that I gave you about young people earlier shows you the heterogeneity or the difference of individuals we've placed under the youth title in the hopes that their concerns, aspirations, and desires are easily identified and dealt with. Now, this is a trap that I hope policymakers do not fall into. When we talk about young people in Malaysia, we cannot say that they all want the same thing, that they all aspire to the same future, that they all have the same aspirations, they all have the same cita-cita, dia nak benda yang sama. No, it's not the truth at all. I think young people have diverse range of ambitions, diverse range of interests, and diverse range of political views as well. And I think it's important for us to appreciate that diversity and the heterogeneity that exists amongst young people today. However, on a broad basis, I think we can try to understand how young people of your generation are different from the ones of my generation or generations that preceded mine. There are a few reasons for this, and I'll start with the one that you all understand the most, which is technology. Youth of this generation are, of course, gadget junkies. You've grown up under the influence of social media, which is something people of my generation didn't really have. Youths of today crave instant gratification, i.e. you want it now, and you want to be gratified, you want to be satisfied now. If I may, in terms of information that they get and how they connect to people. We find ourselves living in an increasingly interconnected world, and through mediums such as Twitter and Facebook, which I use a lot, your opinions can be heard. And it's important to note that this is just your DNA. This is how you've grown up. This is how this is the world that you know, which is completely different from the world that I knew. My time, there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter. When I was your age, there was just about, we just about had email at that point in time. So it's very, very much different. How you communicate is different because that shapes how you decide and how you behave and how you form your opinions. Secondly, youths of your generation are no longer content with playing a passive role in shaping our nation's future. Today's young people don't want to be told what to do, but want to figure out what they can do instead to contribute to nation-building initiatives. This is something extremely important. I always tell my colleagues in government that when you meet with young people, do not ever tell them how they should behave or what they should do or what they should be thankful about. Yes, we can remind them about history, tapi jangan sekali-kali kita bagi tahu mereka bahawa patut berterima kasih dan syukur kepada kerajaan sebab A, B, and C. It's a big mistake. Do not do that. Not do that. I mean, you can do that back in the 80s, you know, that's fine. But now, don't even try that, because that's not going to work. Rather, talk to them about what they can contribute, how they can contribute, and what kind of Malaysia we want to create for the future. We see this in a number of endeavors today, with youths increasingly playing an important role in making a meaningful and tangible change to the country. A good example is the Symosium, which some of the brightest young minds that this country has to offer present here today. If you look at government policy geared towards youth over the past decade or so, I don't think we have been able to keep up with your pace of change. I must admit that we haven't placed enough platforms to cater to the needs of the youths, and we have to do something about this quickly. To a degree I believe to be unseen in our history, Malaysian youths also want to be empowered and given space. They want to be a part of the process and a part of the solution. They don't want top-down policies anymore. It's about bottom-up collaboration. They want their views to matter. They want space to give their opinions, to contribute, and to lead. And I think the government today understands this acutely, that it's not just about top-down instructions from ministers telling you what to do, but rather it's bottom-up collaboration, us working together from the grassroots, building communities, building organizations, building collaborative partnerships with young people, regardless of whether or not you're part of a youth organization, formally or not, whether you're just one or two individuals coming forward to say, I've got an idea that I want to work on, can the government work with us, not tell us what to do, but rather work with us. And that's extremely important as far as youth engagement model for the future is concerned. All of this matters when it comes to addressing issues that all of you will face in the future. There are many issues that we as a nation are up against, but I'd like to conflate those issues under two main titles, which will allow us to understand them better and to think about how we're going to move forward today. The two issues that I speak of are issues of competitiveness and the issue of identity. I'll first have a look at competitiveness. As we look to progress as a high-income nation, we'll have to ensure that everyone has a share of the growing economic pie. The ever-present dichotomy between equity and efficiency is more apparent than ever today, both within and without Malaysia. How can we matter in the global economy if the cost of producing goods within our borders goes up and our productivity does not? These are challenges we'll have to deal with and deal with quickly. And this is, I think, an issue that you must approach in an informed manner. We cannot just debate issues that are important to this country, especially one regarding economic competitiveness, if we ourselves are not equipped with the necessary facts and figures and information and knowledge in order to debate these issues. Now, the government today is going through an extremely difficult time where we have to do the unpopular but the inevitable. So for instance, when we speak about having to rationalize subsidies, this is something that young people understand in terms of kos sara hidup naik. Yes, that's true, kos sara hidup naik, and the government is trying our best to ensure that we minimize the effect, especially on young people. It's something that I speak about in cabinet all the time, representing young Malaysians, the fear, the concerns of young Malaysians that the rise in cost of living is just too much to bear, and the increase in wages and salaries is not as fast as the increase in cost of living. But at the same time, the government has to do what is responsible, not just what's popular. What is responsible is to also ensure that the future long-term sustainability of this country is taken care of, that your children and your grandchildren will have money left in the federal coffers or the federal treasury in order to develop this country. We cannot spend all our money today just on subsidies, for instance. We have to make sure that the subsidy system is far more efficient than what has been existing all this while. So for instance, just let me give you an example. Our subsidy bill every year, just for petrol alone, comes to about 20 billion ringgit Malaysia. That's almost 10% of the federal budget, annual budget, which is around about 220 billion ringgit. So about 10% of that gets spent on fuel, petrol subsidies. So what we see as young people, of course, is minyak naik. But what we don't or fail to appreciate sometimes is that the government has to do the unpopular in order to prevent economic catastrophe in the future. And by this, I mean we have to ensure that, first of all, our fiscal deficit is taken care of. We have a fiscal deficit that has been running in place for the last decade or so. We must be able to bring that down. The government cannot continue to spend more than it earns every year. We must ensure that the federal deficit is reduced. Secondly, we must ensure that subsidies are more targeted than previously. What we've had previously is a blanket subsidy system ataupun subsidi pukal, di mana semua dapat subsidi yang sama. Contohnya subsidi minyak. This is an example that I give again and again for people to understand. Fuel subsidies are given to everybody, regardless of their income bracket, regardless of how much they earn, regardless of the car that they own. This is essentially unfair. This is not progressive. Surely, we must give support, we must give assistance to those people who need them, people from the lower income group, people who are medium income, not high income. But fuel subsidies, 20 billion ringgit worth of fuel subsidies given to everybody, the same amount is given to everyone. Whether you are a big business owner, whether you're a big tauke, or whether you're a small person, whether you're a low income earner, gets the same amount of subsidy. What we want to do is try and move to a system where subsidy assistance can be targeted, given to people who deserve it. That's why we started Bantuan Rakyat Satu Malaysia. Walaupun not a perfect system, but a system that assists people who we know earn a certain amount, 3,000 and below, get direct cash assistance from the government. Therefore, we can start to move away from a system of subsidy pukal to a system of subsidy yang sasaran ataupun targeted subsidies, where we can assist people who deserve to be helped. So that's a system that we have in place right now, where we can reduce the subsidy bill and we can spend the savings, A, on reducing the government federal budget deficit, and B, we can use the savings on things that really matter. Build schools, build universities, build roads, invest in technical training programs, invest in vocational education, stuff that matter for the future competitiveness of this country, as opposed to just spend subsidies on a blanket basis, regardless of whoever receives them. So this is essentially what the government is doing. Even recently, when we announced the increase for tariff electric, ramai yang marah kata our government, again, increasing the price of tariff electricity, but 70% of households did not experience or will not experience an increase in electricity tariffs, because we made sure that for 70% of the households, those who don't use so much electricity, those from lower income groups, are protected from the increase in electricity tariffs. Yang kena adalah mereka yang guna banyak api ataupun bekalan api, and factories as well as companies, offices, commercial premises, which will see an increase in electricity tariffs. Of course, we understand that there will be an effect on the price of goods, because walaupun 70% daripada isi rumah tak terlibat dalam kenaikan tarif elektrik contohnya, tetapi barangan perkhidmatan dan sebagainya akan mengalami sedikit kenaikan harga. But it's something that is necessary, and it's something that is necessarily brought upon us, not so much because of tenaga nasional. There's a lot of confusion out there. If you listen to people, they say, ini adalah sebabkan IPPs, because of TNB, because of greedy IPPs that want to make more profits. It's not true, because any subsidy that we give for the electricity sector goes straight to the people. There's a pass-through mechanism. It doesn't go to the profit and loss statement of the IPPs through the power purchase agreement. So these are things that we have to understand. And because of the increase in fuel prices, we've had to increase the tariff for electricity. So what I'm trying to say is that when we want to talk about a more competitive nation, we also have to make tough decisions, and to make them today. But I can assure you that a lot of the tough decisions that we make today is short-term pain for long-term gain. A lot of countries do not go through these tough decisions, but in the end, they pay for it. They pay for it in terms of bigger debt, bigger deficits, and a country that is less competitive in the future. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to paint a bleak picture for Malaysia's economic future. I believe in the economic success of this country. I believe in the plans that the Prime Minister has in place. But in order for us to achieve that, we do have to go through a short period of pain, adjustment, in order to emerge as a stronger and more competitive economy in the future. And this is something that I think, and I hope that you will debate, but on an informed basis, not just based on what you've heard, what people have told you, but after you've done your own research, you've come to the table with your own views based on sound knowledge and sound facts. Secondly, the concept of identity is another issue that we have to confront with and look at very seriously in the months to come. Our belief system crisscross one another, and that's never been more apparent than it is today. Most of us live in ethnic silos, with our social, cultural lines existing in parallel at best, and at worst, in constant competition to one another. It's been 55 years, and we've never come up with a dominant narrative for us to fall back on. And I think it's time for introspection for all Malaysians. Now, just very quickly, I just want to explain to you what I mean by parallel lines. This is, in addition to economic competitiveness, this is the most pressing issue that exists in Malaysia today. Now, I just illustrate it to you very simply. I use this a lot in my speeches. If you've heard it before, I'm sorry. If you haven't, then fine. But just to explain to you the ethnic silos that we live in, the fact that we're not speaking to one another. And this, in fact, happens more than we care to admit. Now, the parallel lines that I speak of, by definition, all of you know what parallel lines are. Parallel lines, they don't meet, they don't cross each other because they run in parallel. Now, that's Malaysia for you today. You have a Malay guy, a Malay chap who was born in kampung, di mana, wherever lah, some pendalaman punya kampung, and he goes to school, his local school, dekat kampung dia. He goes sekolah kebangsaan. This is a Malay guy. He, obviously, because sekolah kebangsaan, dekat kampung pendalaman, katalah di Sik Kedah, he has never, doesn't come across a Chinese boy throughout his primary school years. Now, for his secondary school, dia masuk MRSM. So he goes into MRSM, he doesn't meet a Chinese guy because MRSM tak banyak Cina ataupun langsung tak ada Cina. So he doesn't meet a Chinese guy in MRSM either. For university, where does he go for university? Okay, for instance, he goes to Jordan for university. Dia ambil pengajian agama di Jordan. Again, he doesn't meet a non-Malay, he doesn't meet a Chinese student. After he leaves Jordan, graduates with a bachelor's degree in Usuluddin or something similar, comes back, works for Jabatan Agama, JAKIM. Again, doesn't meet a Chinese guy. So his parallel lines very clear. Now, when he was born, same day that he was born, a Chinese boy was born, not far away, maybe 10 kilometers away from his kampung in Kedah. Chinese boy was born in Kampung Baru, New Village, Chinese New Village. Primary school, goes to Sekolah Jenis Kebangsaan near his New Village, dekat Kampung Baru dia. No Malay chap in that school. Doesn't see Malay guy in the school at all. Now, for secondary school, he goes to Chinese independent school because he excelled at Chinese, sent to Alustar, go Chinese independent school. Doesn't see a Malay boy. No interaction with Malays at all. University, he goes to Taiwan. Does accounting in Taiwan. So again, no Malay guy in Taiwan, comes back, works for a small medium enterprise run by Chinese family, no Malay guy there. So you have these, I mean, I'm just giving you an example, 2 examples of a thing that occurs quite a lot in Malaysia, where you have parallel lines existing everywhere. And these parallel lines make it extremely difficult for us to identify ourselves as Malaysians, to identify ourselves together. I mean, you have all these parallel lines not crisscrossing one another from birth right up to your professional lives are separated by silos, are separated by experiences which aren't shared experiences. And what makes things worse, I suppose, is that after they start working, dalam saya punya example tadi, Melayu tu kerja dekat Jabatan Agama Islam, yang Chinese tu kerja dekat company, Chinese company with no Malays. What makes things worse is even after work, they have no means of getting together. They have no shared experience. Balik rumah, pasang TV, Melayu tengok Astoria, Cina tengok Walai Toy. So, I mean, it just continues. It just continues. This is a serious matter. And it's come to a stage where these parallel lines are reflected in our purchasing decisions as well. Purchasing decisions are, you know, I recently checked with Celcom, you know, the demographics of Celcom consumers. Celcom consumers are mostly Malay, and Maxis and DG mostly non-Malay, because they see Celcom as a Malay company, and they see DG and Maxis as a non-Malay company. I'm not making a racial point here, I'm just telling you the facts of the matter. So it's come to that. It's come to the fact where even roti, as a racial angle also, kalau Melayu beli gardenia, kalau Melayu beli Massimo. I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, it's come to that. It's come to that. So we have to ask ourselves, this identity about being Malaysian must come first. You know, it must be that we identify ourselves as Malaysian, but we are living in silos. Kita masih lagi hidup dalam kepompong kita sendiri. And we are not admitting this fact. You know, we are not admitting this fact. So I always speak about this, and I don't know what the solution is. You know, I really don't know what the solution is. We tried to run PLKN. PLKN was supposed to be this great big program which would finally address the issue of national unity, which will finally bring those lines together. Parallel lines, you have to bend the parallel lines so that they meet, so that we can bend the course of history, destiny of one another, so that we are together as one people. But PLKN has had its success and has had its failures as well. And I think, I don't know how many of you have been through PLKN. Show of hands, how many of you have been through PLKN? Raise your hand. See, not so many. Not so many. First of all, saja tak nak mengaku, tak apa. You see, I can speak for PLKN, it's okay, because I was on the first board of PLKN. And the issue with PLKN, it's a great program. But first of all, bukan semua pergi. 1 in 5 go. Not all go, 1 in 5 go. And the selection is based on random, rawak, secara rawak. So if you get to go, lucky, or unlucky. It depends on how you want to view it, right? If you don't get to go, then so be it. So what happens to those who don't go? And secondly, my problem has always been, my issue has always been this. From the start, I've said PLKN. I said, when you bring people together when they're 18, their opinions are formed already. Their personalities are formed already. You expect them in 3 months, suddenly, from being the Malay guy that I said just now, Chinese guy that I said just never met Chinese Malay before, tiba-tiba jumpa kat PLKN, culture shock, macam jumpa alien, Chinese. You expect them in 3 months to suddenly be, you know, true one Malaysians. It's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. So this is something that we really need to ask ourselves, ask us honest questions, you know, searching questions about identity and Malaysians today and what the solution is. I don't really have the solution. I don't want to, I'm not the kind of politician who comes talk to you and say, I have all the solutions in the world, so I can janji X, Y, and Z. No. I would rather speak to you about the problems honestly and ask us ourselves to come up with solutions together rather than pretend to know the answer for it but really not know anything. In addressing these serious issues, it's important that the opinions of you young people are heard by policymakers such as myself. It is cliché to say that you'll be the leaders of tomorrow, but let's face it, you will be. Your sheer numbers mean that your voices matter not only from a political standpoint, but one on a far more fundamental level. You're the guys and girls who will be leading this country in time to come, and you're what's most important in our quest to build this nation together. My ministry has a tendency of taking the opinions of belia berpersatuan, or youth in registered associations, more seriously than those without. This was more out of expedience than anything else. with youths being able to work together and articulate their opinions on a range of issues with the luxury of coherence under the umbrella of a single association. However, based on the number of youths registered under bodies per the Ministry's Registrar of Youths, only 20% of Malaysian youths are involved in associated bodies. The vast majority of Malaysian youths are not affiliated to a structured, registered association. With that, the Malaysian Youth Parliament hopes to give opportunities to members to give their opinions on a range of issues affecting the country while representing their respective grassroots organizations or grassroots cohort. The objectives of Parliament Belia are as follows. Firstly, we hope to increase the knowledge and skills of young people to ensure that we have a solid pipeline of future leaders. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, we want to provide a platform for young people to be involved practically in the lawmaking and administrative process of this country. Thirdly, we as policymakers want to identify youth trends that will assist us in ensuring that the policies that come out of this administration are in line with your wants, your needs, your aspirations, and your hopes and your dreams. I implore everyone here to be part of this democratization process to ensure that everyone has a say in the future of this country. We need as many people as possible to be a part of this to ensure that the best ideas possible come up and, if good, are implemented by the government. The mechanism for Parliament Belia is quite intuitive. There are 11.9 million young people in this country, unevenly distributed in the various states. We want to have a system where each member represents 100,000 youths in Parliament Belia, and there will be 119 members under the system. These members will be representing the youths at the state level, meaning that, for example, in Negeri Sembilan will get 4 Parliament Belia, Ahli Parliament Belia, with about 400,000 youth residing in the state. Selangor will get 25 Ahli Parliament Belia because they have 2.5 million youths within their borders. So kita ambil nisbah 1 Ahli Parliament Belia bagi setiap 100,000 belia yang ada di negeri tersebut. Each candidate will have 5 supporters, will need to get 5 supporters from the state he or she is going to represent in order for his name to be in the ballot. So kalau nak jadi calon Ahli Parliament Belia, you need 5. 5 orang yang menyokong akan jadi calon Parlimen Belia. Voters will then vote for candidates in their own states. Now, all voting will be done online, ensuring that as many young people as possible get to vote on D-Day, or we have a week for you to vote. In order to ensure the credibility and the rigor of the election process, a third party will vet the whole system. So it's going to be experimental. First time we've ever tried Parliament Belia. It's a big challenge for me, to be honest, because Parliament Belia was an idea that the Prime Minister announced 3 years ago. The first time it's going to be implemented this year. Sebelum ni kita buat percubaan, Parliament Belia percubaan, trial run, where we appointed Ahli Parliament Belia. This is the first time ever where we are going to actually do open voting and an open process. So you can campaign online, you can post your election videos online on YouTube, and everyone will vote online. And I've been talking to my ministry. I said, please make sure that the system works. I don't want the server to crash on day one. That would be extremely embarrassing for me. In Japan, the minister will have to resign if that happens. Thank God it doesn't happen in Malaysia. But we want to make sure the system is clear, the system is beyond question. Telus dan the system works. We don't want people to suddenly question the results after the results are announced. So it's very important that Parliament Belia works, because selama ni kita bagi banyak ruang kepada belia yang berpersatuan di Kementerian Belia dan Sukan. Di bawah Parlimen Belia, saya nak bagi ruang kepada belia yang tidak berpersatuan. Walaupun belia yang berpersatuan boleh bertanding dalam Parlimen Belia, tetapi this is really for young people who do not belong to associations. Those who belong to MBM, Belia 4B, to MAYC, to all the other youth organizations, associations. Only 20% of young people yang berpersatuan. Yang lain semua adalah independent, indies. I call you guys indies. Those who do not belong to any organization, those who are free, those who are bebas. And probably your political views are also bebas and free. So, which is a good thing. And Parliament Belia is the platform for you to come forward, to speak, to contest, and to be part of the nation-building process together with us. I must admit that in the past, most of the programs carried out by the government were top-down in nature, with us telling you what to do. But times are different now. And as I said earlier, the government recognizes that today's youths are not of the same ilk as their predecessors, and that we need to redefine the role of youth in society and how to go about accommodating this change. That being said, I believe that Parliament Belia is a start in the right direction, a platform that will allow you to play a more proactive role in shaping the future of this nation. Parliament Belia is an opportunity for you to tell us what you think we should do, whether it is in terms of economic policy, education, or national unity. As future leaders of tomorrow, not just in politics, but also as leaders of industry and civil society, your views today will be the views that matter tomorrow, and it is important that your voice gets heard. And I hope to see all of you participating in Parliament Belia, if not as Calon, but at least get registered, get involved, and be part of the process of making this country a better country. Thank you very much to the organizers of NALS. Thank you to all of you for listening to me this morning. You've come here this morning not just to be part of a summit, not just to be part of another student gathering, but rather you've come here to empower yourselves, to be heard, and to be part of the process of developing this country. And I tell you this from the bottom of my heart, and this is me speaking to you as Minister of Youth and Sport, but somebody who's not that much older than you. I'm only 38 years old. Thanks. You know, we have a great country. I wake up every morning and I thank God that I was born a Malaysian. Simply because I think this country has tremendous potential. This is a country with absolutely boundless potential. We can be one of the best countries in Southeast Asia, in Asia, even in the world in terms of economic development, in terms of educational achievement, in terms of political stability. We're not quite there yet, but I believe we can. You know why? You know what our greatest asset is? Our greatest asset is our people. But we have to be able to give our people the opportunity to shine, to achieve their potential if we are to be a great country. A great country is only the sum of its parts. If the parts are great, the country becomes great. And I want us to be a great country. I always give an analogy of a football team. A football team is only as good as its players. But the players themselves may be good, may excel on their own. But if they don't come together as a team, then they can't be the best team in the league. So for instance, for me, the greatest football team in history is Manchester United. No doubt. You just know that. Thank you for that. I think majority of this room is on the right path. Thank you. But, you know, we've got problems this year. You know, we've got problems this year. On their own, they're fantastic individuals. I mean, Rooney, Van Nistelrooy, Mata, on their own, they're fantastic. But they just can't seem to jive together. Our manager's having problems. But the point is, you want to make sure that the team works. And I want to make sure that Team Malaysia works. It's not just about us excelling on our own. It's not just about me and my success. It's about us and our success. That's what I want you to remember. It's about our success as Malaysia. We've sent all of you overseas, some of you from studying Australia, New Zealand, some of you studying Indonesia, some of you studying from locally. All of you have a part to play in this country. And I want to tell you that the government welcomes you to play a part in this country's development. I mean, my door is always open to you. Please come and see me. If you can't see me, I'm widely available on Twitter and Facebook. Give me your ideas, because this country can only succeed if its people come together to make this a better country. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin, for that inspiring and informative speech. We hope that the anecdotes, idioms, and quotes such as "a small pain for future's gain" would inspire the young generation in becoming a great leader in the future. Without further ado, we would like to call upon Muhammad Izzat bin Abdul Halim, the co-director of NALS 2014, to bring upon the symbolic device to Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin to officiate the launching of NALS 2014.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we will open a Q&A session to the floor. Please be minded that we will only be taking 5 questions. Participants are required to state their name and university, and please ensure that questions are short, concise, respectful, and appropriate for the event.
Assalamualaikum, YB. My name is Midi. I'm a 4th-year law student from Monash University, Melbourne.
Where are you, Edie?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry. I didn't mean it like that.
No problem. I got that a lot. First thing, I think that it's not absolute mystery lah, the phenomenon of parallel, the minimal interaction between races that actually happening in Malaysia. I think this is my opinion, and I would like your response on that matter. I think that the education policy in Malaysia make it more likely for this phenomenon to happen. For example, we allow a specific school to specific ethnicity for them to study. We have a specific university for specific ethnicity to study. So I think that the policy of Malaysia education that enables this parallel to happen, it does not happen by coincidence, is actually facilitated by the fact that we have this parallel education system. So don't you think that what I'm trying to say is that maybe it's time for us to consider, maybe this is not a popular proposal, that we should have a national universal school system in Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. I like your style. Ada borang keahlian UMNO apa sih? Next. Yeah. Yep.
Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Talking about economics, according to Fitch Rating Malaysian,
Nama.
my name is Muhammad Shauki. I'm from UC of Nottingham. My question is about economics. According to Fitch Rating, Malaysian economics has been downgraded. Okay, and regarding budget 2014, how does GST and subsidy rationalization helps curbs the budget deficit problem, thus improving the economic sustainable development for future generation? That's my question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salamullah.
My name is Muhammad Adam Roslan.
Adam.
Yeah, accounting student from International Islamic University, Malaysia. My question is about the young parliament, for the parliament. When there is issue discussed in the parliament, how about the execution? Do it be done by the Ministry of Law, or do it have the connection with other ministry?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all of you. My name is Muhammad Nur Hakim from Institute Hussein on Malaysia, Batu Pahat, Johor. My question is how to address and encourage students or youths to address their idea, their concern towards the development of our nation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
Yep. Sorry.
My name is Raja Muhammad Daniel, and I'm from University of Adelaide. And I'm here to present to you a question because I'm a very big advocate of extreme sports, and being the Minister of Sports and Youth and Sports, I would like to actually want to see what are the progressions of the government to actually hunt down these extreme sport enthusiasts like myself, because right now I notice that there's a growing number of people who are actually diving into like skateboarding, downhill skateboarding, luging, rock climbing, and there are people who are actually competing around the world, competing in Italy. There are people competing in Kozakov in Czech Republic and winning on behalf of Malaysia, but we are doing it unofficially. And myself, I compete in the Philippines, but I'm not recognized in terms of that avenue, you see. We had Rakan Muda that was going on, but nothing really flourished out of giving these athletes their stage over in Malaysia. Because we have the world #1 street luge who is working in Petronas right now. He's an engineer, he's world #1, and no one knows who he is. And we have the world #4 rock climbing athlete who's competing in Italy, but no one knows who he is. You see, but I would just like to to suggest or probably see where the direction is going from the ministry to actually advocate and to help these athletes to gain a better stage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Sharifah Hadi
Do
Yasmin.
I hear a lady? Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Thanks.
hello. Assalamualaikum. My name is Sharifah Hadi Yasmin and I'm from Inter-Educational College. I'm here to give my opinion actually. It's not really a question. I think that we put too much emphasis on Malaysian identity and not on Malaysian mentality. I think that people should actually realize that they have to work together and it cannot be just through interaction, because if we want to interact with people of other races, we can. There's no problem. I go to a normal school, and even if I didn't go to a normal school, I still see them on the streets, or I do at least work with one Chinese person in my life. I'm sure of that. So I think that instead of just gaining unity through interaction, we should actually have a platform to discuss interracial issues. Even though this is a very sensitive topic, I think that most of us are actually mature enough to handle it if we are given the right platform. So my suggestion is to have an interracial youth platform for this to happen, and to share our opinions and share our problems so that we can work together and become a better nation. Thank you.
YB, mungkin last.
Okay, can
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I...
Assalamualaikum. Yang last.
Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama saya Muhammad Qaim Qais bin Azmi dari Universiti Tun Hussein of Malaysia.
Faiz ya?
Qaim, Qaim, Qaim.
Oh, Taim.
Ya. Saya ada soalan kepada YBKJ berkenaan dengan kalau kita lihat tarifan belia di United Kingdom, ianya range dia 15 hingga ke 25 tahun. Tapi kalau kita lihat tarifan belia di Malaysia ianya melibatkan 15 hingga ke 40 tahun. Jadi jurang dia terlampau besar dan terlampau luas. Jadi saya ingin minta pandangan YBKJ berkenaan adakah sesuai ataupun relevan tarifan belia ini 15 hingga ke 40 tahun ni masih sesuai di Malaysia. Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Thank you, dearest participants, for your questions.
No, I think just
one more question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I have a question regarding bottom-top collaboration between the youth and the governmental leaders.
So your name is?
Oh, sorry. My name is Marissa. I'm from KMB College Marabanting. Okay. So my question is, how do you expect bottom-top collaboration to progress when it is actually widely advertised in the media and newspapers as well that even when the youth poses questions or comes up with opinions on issues nowadays, the governmental leaders themselves actually come up with the dismissive answers, the fact that you don't actually give...
I haven't answered yet, so how would you know I'm going to be dismissive or not? No, sorry.
Okay, well, I'm not actually focusing on you, sir. I'm actually focusing on the general public perception on governmental leaders who give dismissive answers towards youth who actually poses issues and opinions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Done? Okay. Great questions. I think quite a bit of ground covered. I'll just see if I can answer them in as quickly as possible and in enough detail as possible. The first question from Didi, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, sorry. Future UMNO member. About education policies in Malaysia and parallel lines. I think you hit the nail on the head as far as one of the contributing factors to the parallel lines. And you asked for a national education system. I think a lot of people feel that that's the solution, that's a solution that could work. There are some factors that prevent that from happening. The first one is, I suppose, political will to have a national education system where it's very difficult to get any consensus politically on having a unified education system. Who will agree to it? How many people will agree to it? And which parties, political parties, regardless of whether you're Barisan or Pakatan, can come together and call for a unified education system, I think is extremely difficult. And I'll tell you why. When you talk about a unified education system, most people say that the problem lies with non-national schools, for instance, sekolah jenis kebangsaan. That's part of the problem that you hinted at just now. So because you have national schools, sekolah kebangsaan, and you also have national type schools, sekolah jenis kebangsaan, then we have this issue of various different education streams, which separates our kids from very early on. But there's also the argument to be made that it's not just national type schools, not just vernacular schools, but you also have universities, for instance, which only cater for Bumiputra. University Technology Mara, for instance, UITM, mostly Malay Bumiputras allowed in UITM, mostly. So there'll come a point where the Chinese community will not want to give up their schools. The Malay community will not want to give up on their religious schools or in the MRSMs and the UITMs. So really nobody will ever agree to a national, single-stream national system. It will be very difficult for us to get agreement, unless, of course, everyone agrees, okay, we'll close our Chinese schools. If you open up Mara, if you open up UITM, if you open up MRSM, then you might have a compromise. But even still, I find that it will be extremely difficult for us to achieve that compromise. So I do understand what you are saying, and I think that it is the best solution in an ideal world. It is the best solution in an ideal world, and it should have been done, actually, when we had independence. But it's not to be. And I don't think that it'll be easy to, I'm talking about political realities here. It's not going to be easy for us to come up with a compromise that everyone will be happy with. We cannot just close down Chinese schools and Indian schools and say, okay, that's fine. But they will also ask for concessions on the part of the Bumiputra community. So until everyone is prepared to give up a lot, I think it'll be very difficult for us to come up with a national, single-stream national school. But what we can do is we can increase the interaction between students in different streams. Now, this is something that I'm a big advocate of. I'm a big advocate of, for instance, co-curricular activities being implemented between national schools, sekolah kebangsaan, and sekolah jenis kebangsaan. This is an idea that was started many, many years ago at the Education Ministry. It doesn't receive enough funding. And I've spoken about this again and again. I've raised this again and again, especially with the Prime Minister. I told the PM, I said, sir, you know, the government spends about 600 million ringgit every year on program Latihan Khidmat Negara PLKN. But the program to allow students from national schools, sekolah kebangsaan, and sekolah jenis kebangsaan to play together, to undertake and do co-curricular activities together, only gets 2.5 million ringgit. 2.5 million ringgit and 600 million ringgit, it's langit dan bumi, even worse than that. So to me, we have to start by increasing the contact time between people who go to different streams of education. We must ensure that they come together somehow, not just at 18 years old, but even before that. Before they're 18, they have meaningful interaction with one another so that they can build a Malaysia together. So I understand your proposal. It's a great proposal in an ideal world. But of course, as usual, we do not live in an ideal world. We live in a world of possibilities, of making things possible. So I think we have to look at what's possible. And what's possible is increasing the contact time between kids who go to different streams of education, rather than trying to come up with a national stream which no one will agree to. Shakir, you addressed the issue of, you said Fitch downgraded Malaysia's economy. Well, they didn't downgrade Malaysia's economy. They gave a warning that the outlook may be downgraded if we didn't do something to the fiscal deficit. That's why the government had to reduce subsidies. You asked, how is reducing subsidies and increasing or introducing the GST in 2015 going to address the issue of the fiscal deficit? Well, absolutely it will address the issue of the fiscal deficit because we need to reduce the amount of money that we spend on subsidies and on other things. So by reducing the amount that you spend on subsidies, you reduce the expenditure of the government and you address the deficit and you're able to bring down the deficit to lower than 3%. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to aim for a budget, balanced budget by 2020. How does GST help? GST helps because it ensures that tax collection is more efficient. Now, GST is not a new tax. It replaces the sales and services tax. This is something that we need to repeat again and again. The goods and services tax that we're introducing next year replaces the sales and service tax that exists today. Only thing is, it's more efficient in taxing businesses, which at the moment are evading tax through their supply chain. So with GST in place, we are able to tax at each level of value add. So for instance, you produce a product, you produce an iPhone, we can tax the value add at every single stage of development or production, from the factory right up to the point of sale. So there will be an effect as far as tax collection is concerned. We are confident that with the GST we can increase slightly the amount that we raise in terms of tax collection via the indirect tax. It's like the VAT or GST in Australia and other parts of the world. So the point is, the GST will increase the government collection. Will it result in inflation? The government has calculated there will be a one-off consequence which will see prices increase slightly. But that's it. After that, things will stabilize and the inflationary effect will be minimal. So as far as the government is concerned, 160 countries around the world already implement the GST. It is an efficient system for tax collection which will help the government bring down the deficit and ensure a better economic outlook for the future. The point is this, Shakir asked, why is it important that we reduce the deficit? If we do not reduce the deficit, if we do not show the international investing community that we are responsible in managing our economic affairs, then we will be downgraded. Then what you said will be true. Then we will be downgraded. When we are downgraded, that means when we try to raise money overseas, when Malaysia wants to raise money in the international capital markets, when Malaysia issues a bond, for instance, to raise money, those of you who study finance know this, you have to pay a higher interest rate simply because our rating has been downgraded to a lower rating. When our rating is downgraded, it means we are more risky. We are a riskier investment proposition. So people who lend us money, people who buy our bonds, will demand a bigger interest payment for the risk that they have to take in lending Malaysia money. And we have to borrow money. Countries borrow money all the time. And I think if our rating goes down, interest rates go up, it's going to be very, very difficult for us. And also, it's a deterrent on investments as well. People don't really want to invest in countries which have low sovereign debt rating because it suggests that the government is not good at managing the economy and the economic affairs of their country. Adam mentioned about Parliament Belia. How will it be executed? This is a great question because a lot of people ask me, Parliament Belia, is it going to be just a talk shop, or are there really going to be efforts to execute and implement suggestions and motions that will be decided by Parliament Belia? Well, the first thing to note is that Parliament Belia is not the real parliament. You don't have the powers of legislature that the parliament has. Real parliament, we can pass laws which have to be abided to. Parliament Belia is advisory. So yes, your suggestions will be tabled to cabinet. I will bring it to cabinet myself, saying that these are the motions, usul-usul yang dibentangkan, dibahaskan dan dilulus oleh Parliament Belia, and we will ensure our best to ensure that the realistic policies, realistic suggestions will be implemented as best as possible. Now, it's also in our interest, in the government's interest, to make sure that we take seriously what Parliament Belia says. Because if we don't take seriously what Parliament Belia says, then automatically the credibility and legitimacy of Parliament Belia itself will be questioned. So for instance, for me, if you come up with 10 suggestions, we want to make sure that at least 6 or 7 of those are seriously looked into, if not implemented. Because we want to make sure that Parliament Belia has that credibility. The young people say, Parliament Belia, bukan setakat kita cakap saja, tapi government takes seriously and implemented what we did. So I'm really looking forward to Parliament Belia. I'm really looking forward to ensuring that we can implement some of the proposals that come through from Parliament Belia. It's not just going to be about talk. I hope that it's going to be about action as well. Saudara Hakim tadi tanya tentang kebimbangan daripada Belia, macam mana kita nak tangani. Saya rasa Parlimen Belia adalah salah satu landasan yang cukup baik. Bukan hanya Parlimen Belia, kita juga ada MPPK, Majlis Perundingan Pelajar Kebangsaan, kita ada Majlis Perundingan Belia Negara, macam-macam saluran yang kerajaan telah tetapkan untuk anak-anak muda cadang kepada kerajaan. Inilah pandangan kita, inilah kebimbangan kita, kerisauan kita, dan inilah cadangan penyelesaian kita. What we want from all of you, not just to tell us about your concerns, but also to tell us about solutions and how. Please end now. Okay. I've got 5 minutes. Yeah. So we want to make sure that you come up with solutions as well. It's not just about the channel of communication. Ya, bukan hanya saluran untuk menyampaikan pandangan daripada anak-anak muda, but also your suggestions as to how we can assist you. And that's really what we're looking for. Raja Muhammad Daniel spoke about extreme sports. Where's Daniel, sir? Oh, okay. You're talking about Adib, right, just now? The Luch guy. Abdul, Abdul. You're talking about Abdul. Yeah, we know about them. We know about you guys. So, I think what we should do, you should come and see me and see how we can collaborate to ensure that extreme sports is well supported by the government. I've got no problems with that. In fact, for me, sport development in this country has to go beyond just the traditional sports, because young people in Malaysia today are doing all sorts of things. Not just traditional sports, not just sports which we spend a lot of money in, from athletics, swimming, hockey, football, but also extreme sports, which I know a lot of young people are into, and also esports. Recently, we supported, for the first time, esports in Malaysia. So I appreciate the diverseness of people participating in sports today. So, bring you guys over. I'll get in touch with you after this, yeah? I think the lady just now spoke about having forums for interracial issues. Absolutely, yes. And I think that we should be brave enough to speak about sensitive issues. I'm not saying that, we should scream from the top of our heads and, speak about religious and racial issues, but there must be a forum for people to speak about issues without fear of being shouted down and without fear of saying, we'll arrest you under seditious laws. No, I think it's about time that we give young people the space to speak on interracial issues, even though sometimes it's sensitive, but we must make sure that our views are heard. Taim just now raised about range belia. They kata the UK 15 to 25, in Malaysia is 15 to 40. It was worse before we amended the Akta Belia. Before we amended Akta Belia a couple of years ago, Persatuan Belia ni, they had people in their 60s still in Persatuan Belia. I couldn't understand. But now at least we brought it down to 40. I really think, this is my personal view, I think we have to bring it down even more. We have to bring it down even more because when you talk about belia at 40, I mean, really, I don't feel belia at all. So I really think we need to bring down this age group. But my generation has to understand that we have to give up. Sometimes it's about power. They have power dalam Persatuan Belia, nak jadi president Persatuan Belia, nak jadi pengurusi Persatuan Belia. So they say, no, you cannot reduce it. Because they kata, orang muda mana dia tahu macam mana nak bawa persatuan. But my point is, if you don't give young people the opportunity, you will never know. You will never know. So you must give young people the opportunity. And even my own jawatan Ketua Pemuda UMNO Malaysia. In Pemuda UMNO, the age limit is 40. Ketua Pemuda UMNO Malaysia, the age limit is nothing. There's no age limit. So you can be a 60-year-old Ketua Pemuda UMNO Malaysia. I don't know what kind of Pemuda UMNO you'll be, but you can be. So, I mean, one of my aims is, at least at the end of my term as Ketua Pemuda, I want to put age limit. Ketua Pemuda pun must be under 40. I don't want to do it now, because if I do it now, then people will say, he's doing it so that people can't contest against him. But I'll do it once I leave. So after I leave, I'll change that. And the range of belia, I'll have to have a heart-to-heart conversation with the Persatuan Belia to ensure that we can bring it down. I really want to bring down the age of youth organizations or tafsiran belia to if possible, under 30, because that really reflects, and that really means that we trust you. If we don't trust you and we don't demonstrate that trust, I think all of this talk is for nothing. And finally, Marissa, you spoke about bottom-up collaboration, the perception out there that government dismisses suggestions by young people. I think that perception is unfair. I really think that perception is unfair. And I think it's changing today. I'm here to engage with you. I'm here not to tell you what to do. I'm here for you to tell me what to do. This is precisely the job of a minister and a wakil rakyat. It's not to tell people what to do, but it's for you to tell me what to do. It doesn't matter whether you're 20s or whether you're 18 or 19. I work for you. We work for you. The government works for you. And that's something that the Prime Minister has tried to instill in all of us in cabinet. In cabinet meetings, he always reminds us, Sushi Najib always reminds us, he said, look, the era of government knows best is over. How can 25, 30 ministers, mostly men, middle-aged, know exactly what to do with this country? It's impossible. It's impossible. 30 middle-aged men, mostly, in cabinet, cannot know absolutely everything that is necessary to solve the problems of the country today. We need to go out there and listen to all of you, which is why, for instance, whatever I do, for instance, recently, I have a big problem on my head right now in Kementerian Belia dan Sukan, what to do with Rakan Muda. Daniel spoke about Rakan Muda just now. Rakan Muda has been a great program, but it's something that has lost its shine in the last 5 to 10 years. So I need new ideas. I don't know what to do. I mean, I've not even been part of Rakan Muda for the last 10, 15 years. So I need to ask people. So I crowdsource the information. I get it from Facebook, I get it from Twitter, and there we can get a better complexion of what young people think about. That's absolutely what we want to do today. So Marissa, the perception is not true. I'm not dismissing you. I'm asking all of you to work together with me, work together with the government. My ministry is open to you 24/7. Well, not 24/7, don't come at night, I'm not there. But, you know, you're more than welcome to come and see me at any time. And I've changed my ministry's ethos. My ministry's ethos is from the youth and for the youth. So instead of me telling you what to do, I want you to tell us what you want to do. So for instance, the programs that we run are led by young people now. We don't say, these are the programs on offer at the Ministry of Youth and Sports, take it or leave it. No, it's not a menu anymore. Rather, you come up with the menu, because that's absolutely what we believe in. So, dia dah jeling kat saya, so berhenti. I'll stop right now. Thank you very much, all of you, and enjoy the session today.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin. We would like to present a token of appreciation by Fatin Sajida to Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin for sharing his inspiring thoughts and ideas.
We would like to invite Fatin Sajida binti Dato Abdul Shakur and Muhammad Izzat bin Abdul Halim to escort Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin for a brief session after this ceremony. Thank you, Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin. To kickstart the event for today, we begin with the topic, Continuing a Legacy versus Implementing New Ideas, a Delicate Balancing Act. Farhan Yunas from UMNO Club of South Australia will take the floor as moderator for this session. Farhan Yunas from UMNO Club of South Australia will take the floor as the moderator for this session.
Farhan, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Chairperson, VIPs, Student Council, the future leaders of Malaysia, the members of the floor. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. First and foremost, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Farhan bin Yunas. I am the moderator for the first session for today, which is the title of the session is Continuing a Legacy versus Implementing New Ideas, a Delicate Balancing Act. It's a really interesting topic, and it is really suitable with the current situation that's happening right now. First, I would like to introduce the speakers for today. On my immediate left here is Syed Sadiq Syed Abdul Rahman. Is a prominent debater. Is a prominent debater of the International Islamic University of Malaysia. He grew up in Johor Bahru and completed his high school in the Royal Military College in Perak. He did his executive intern, the Perdana Fellow, at the Prime Minister's office, placed under the de facto Minister of Law, YB Nancy Shukri. And besides Syed Sadiq, I'd like to introduce Arif Yasir Zulkafli, who grew up in Kedah. Give him a round of applause. Who grew up in Kedah, completed his high school in Sultan Abdul Halim College, and later graduated from Gunma University, Japan, with his Bachelor of Engineering, Chemical Engineering major in 2013. He represented Malaysian students to the Global Economic Forum in Malaysia in the year of 2011. He was the former president of UMNO Club Tokyo and currently works as a failure analysis engineer. All right. Right now, I would like to give you a brief introduction to the topic for today. Raja Tan Sri Dato Sri Arshad bin Raja Tun Uda, during an interview with the New Straits Times in 2005, said that in the old days, everything was based on seniority. But as the business gets more complex and given the changing market environment, you don't just go on seniority. You go on ability and many other criteria. you need somebody who can relate to the business community, to government, and with the staff. Thus, because of that, Dato Sri Johan Raslan was appointed as the Executive Chairman of PricewaterhouseCoopers Malaysia due to his ability, not his age priority. So right now, would the new successor be executing the exact blueprint of his predecessor or implementing a new strategy? Some of the predecessors feels insecure to leave his position and tend to somehow clone himself so that the current ones would do exact the same way. This is what's happening actually in most corporations. So right now, such visualization or aspiration might not be agreed upon by the newbie, since the new successor might have own ideas to develop the organization to dissociate new administration from previous one. When you try to, when the predecessor try to clone themselves, this will limit the creativity, and this is not a good thing. But if the structure is already in good condition, why choose to go astray? What more do we need to approve? What more do we need to prove? So now, the question to bear in mind is that, if the base of the structure is bad, should we build a new structure all over again, start from the bottom, or we just patch things up to make things easier for us? So, the question I would like to ask both of our panel here. Do you agree on implementing new ideas or adopting the existing ones? So, Syed?
Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning, I bid to all. Firstly, I'm honored to be here, and I also need to personally thank both my parents and also my grandfather, who drove all the way from the land down south, Johor Bahru, just to come here to see me speaking. Thank you very much. Yeah, they're here right in front. I think it's, yeah, thank you very much, Ma. So if you ask me, there's no objective answer to this question. Because honestly speaking, like whether we should recalibrate something or whether we should maintain status quo depends on the context of that question. So i.e., like when you look at like the recalibration of a company, there are no two companies which are similar to one another. So we need to look at the demands of that company. In just the same way, if I'm to parallelize this towards international relations, some people might argue that granting amnesty towards Ben Ali of Tunisia was a good act, while some might say that the perspective of the possibility of granting an amnesty towards Bashar al-Assad might be a negative act. But the fact is, there's no objective, concrete, right answer, and everything should be premised upon the context-sensitive nature of that question. So I think my answer to that question is a cocktail policy. A cocktail policy generally means that it is a mixture of both, whether we should maintain the beneficial parts of the policy and eradicate the negative elements from that particular policy. So if we are to contextualize this towards most examples or practices of international relations out there, so if you look during apartheid South Africa, right? During the time of apartheid back then, although generally the populace in Africa, and to some extent the international community, were very vindictive and would want to demand for the continuous persecution and prosecution of the whites for the crimes which they have committed in the past, but the Truth and Reconciliation Committee and Council was still established, and those people were forgiven because we still want to move away from our past and concentrate on our future. So that's a balance, and that's the mixture in which we want to ideally achieve. Or if we look to some extent, the amnesty which was given towards Ben Ali, that's also another example which shows that the mixture is necessary for us to reach a common goal. But whether we like it or not, the common theme and the common answer which I can give, since the question was very broad, the common answer is that it must always be a cocktail policy because there's no objective answer in which we can reach. However, I do want to say something though. Regardless of the answers of that question, there must still be one guideline which I hope that current leaders and future leaders would adhere to. And that guideline is that that answer must indefinitely be susceptible towards the democratic mandate. Because whether we like it or not, my answer, your answer, might not be the objective truth, because the truth is unbelievably subjective. So the best filtering process is none other but to also listen to our members and the members of our community. Because unfortunately, no matter how much we think that we are right, some people are self-righteous, conceited, self-absorbed individuals who always think that they are right and completely ignore the understandings of others. So in order for us to filter that mechanism is for us to institute a mechanism in which democracy is instituted. So again, allow me to contextualize this with current examples, which I personally went through. I myself, I was genuinely happy when I attended one of the sessions by Kementerian Belia dan Sukan, which is called the Budget Rationalisation. At that point in time, when I first entered, I thought it will be a government-centric program. It's just there to provide defenses for the government in terms of the recalibration of subsidies. But then something which struck me in the heart is that the fact that actually the Kementerian itself invited an opposition think tank to also present their case. And this is something which I applaud, especially in the current context in which, unfortunately, Malaysian politics is painted to be highly polarized. So this is something which I generally want. And also, the call by Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim to push for unity talks and integration to ensure that we weed out racial and religious elements which are unfortunately negative. So these are things which should happen under both political spectrums, regardless of your ideological interests. And this is something which we should push forward. So in line with that answer, so just even when I discussed with Han and Arif, I think for this session, I would also, if possible, want to allocate more time to the Q&A session. Because maybe you listening to me might not be the best thing, might not be the best thing or something which you want, because I might be babbling here. You might not be interested at the topic which I want. But you might have more interesting topics in which you want to share, in which I'll be able to answer. I hope so, and I'll try to answer. But that's something which I want. As a fellow debater myself, the clearest difference in a politician, debater, with public speakers is the fact it's a two-way street. It's not only me giving a lecture about what I want and what you should achieve. It should always be a two-way street. And I think at the end, the conclusion, which I hope most of us would adhere to, is the fact that there's no objective common goal. And often, it's always a mixture cocktail policy. And secondly, it's the fact that regardless of the outcomes in which we want to create, the outcomes must always be susceptible towards the democratic mandate. Even the very definition of a state, in its most complex sense, is that the state should always be the locus of our collective moral actions. Is that we are all together, and our interests should be represented by that particular community, and we should not be oblivious of the interests of others. So I think that's how I'll answer my question. Those are the two concerns which I'd like to raise. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Said. So, Mr. Arif, what are your views on that question?
Actually, first of all, I would like to thank NALS for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this. To be a part of this something big is not something that I always imagine, you know. Student leaders, not just from Malaysia, but from abroad. First of all, I would like to ask you guys to give a big applause to NALS and their committee member for organizing this great event. Okay, actually, our topics are very broad, like my friend said just now. Okay, before I start, I would like to ask permission to deliver my speech, whether it is in Malay or English. I would like to add, because I believe sometimes the message are far more easy to convey if it's being said in our own mother tongue. Okay, dalam pandangan saya, I'm so sorry because when I talk in Malay, I still couldn't get rid of my dialect because I was born in Kedah, raised 15. I never left Kedah until I went to Japan. Okay, I'm so sorry for that. Okay, dalam implementasi idea baru ataupun kita adopting yang sedia ada, bagi saya kedua-duanya memainkan peranan yang cukup penting. Kerana kita tak boleh simply ambil idea yang baru dan kita buang idea yang lama. Sebab kalau kita buat macam tu, kita akan mengakibatkan ketidakstabilan. Sebagai contoh, saya tahu mungkin idea ni seringkali diperdebatkan dan dikatakan agak resis. Bila kita bercakap mengenai dasar ekonomi baru, saya faham mungkin ada di sini bersetuju dengan tak bersetuju, dan ini pandangan saya. Dasar ekonomi baru sudah ada dekat Malaysia sudah berapa lama? Sudah daripada 1970 sampailah sekarang, dan sekarang kita dah tukar nama ke model ekonomi baru. Dan kenapa dasar itu masih ada? Jawapannya mudah, kerana matlamat itu masih belum tercapai. Dan bagi saya, andai kata dasar itu masih belum mencapai matlamat, penting bagi kita untuk meneruskan dan pada masa yang sama cuba untuk menambah baik. Kalau ada kelompokan, idea yang tak berapa cantik, mungkin kita boleh tambah benda yang baru. Sebab kita kena ingat, perubahan masa akan merubah segalanya. Yang muda akan tua, dan tua akan, yalah, insyaAllah meninggal. Mungkin ni idea yang tak berapa elok lah. Tapi realiti kita kena ingat, kita untuk suddenly we want to change things that are already there, tak boleh buat. Kerana kita kena ingat, kalau kita buat macam tu, consequences dia akan lebih dahsyat. Betul tak? Sebab itu bagi saya, salah satu daripada dasar polisi kerajaan yang dah ada daripada sebagai contoh dasar ekonomi baru patut diteruskan. Tetapi kita kena ingat, as time goes by, we need to improvise. The core is still the same, but we have to remember, we need to improvise because we want it to be realistic and suitable at that particular time. Awak tak boleh cakap benda yang sama sebagai contoh tahun 70-an dengan 80-an. Sama, tak? Sebagai contoh jugalah, saya merupakan bekas dasar pandang ke timur. My opinion and my senior opinion are different. As an example, kalau dalam tempat saya bekerja ada pelbagai jenis generasi. I'm maybe the third generation, the first one generation that was being sent to Japan when the first policy was launched, and I'm maybe the third generation because I went to Japan after 26 the policy was implemented. At my workplace, we do have differences. Face it, why? Because the way he thinks and the way I think are different. So back on the question, dasar yang lama, for me, we should continue. But we have to remember, it has to be realistic and suitable for the time. Awak tak boleh senang-senang buang benda tu dan implement benda baru macam tu saja. Dan yang kedua, berdasarkan kepada satu lagi, idea baru pula. Apabila kita nak buat idea baru, dia berkait rapat. Kalau kita tengok balik, dasar yang lama tu diteruskan kerana ia perlu diteruskan kerana masih tak mencapai objektif. Sebagai contoh, saya sebenarnya dah fikir benda ni lama dah. Tapi sebenarnya tadi pun YBKJ ada cakap kot benda ni berdasarkan national unity. Bagi saya, mungkin idea saya ni agak kasar, tapi saya percaya masa dah sampai supaya Malaysian shouldn't be divided from the beginning. Kita face the fact, daripada kecil kita dah dibahagikan Melayu dengan Melayu, Cina dan Cina, India dan India. Kadang-kadang national unity, kalau atas kertas, everything is simple. Okay, for instance, kalau you nak buat macam video clip, you ask Malay to dance, Malay punya dance, Chinese punya dance, Indian punya dance. You can see there is national unity. But on paper, on television, everything looks to be so beautiful. But in real life, things are not that way. Okay, 4 years in Japan, Malay will always be Malay. This is what I see. Chinese with the Chinese and Indians with the Indians. But this is actually something new for me because back in my school days, where I was in Sultan Abdul Hamid College, I have friends, Chinese, Indians. We eat together, we sleep together. I mean sleep during pengakap punya camp and stuff like that. That means the different and our opinion. If let's say you ask, okay, me and my friend and one Chinese from let's say sekolah jenis kebangsaan and one Malay from sekolah yang dia tak pernah bercampur dengan mana-mana races, the idea will be different. You bercakap mengenai national unity, tapi kalau kita tak combat daripada awal, tak cuba daripada awal lagi, macam mana kita nak pastikan yang satu hari nanti Malaysia tu boleh buat Malaysia yang kita nak? Kita selalu bercakap, oh Malaysia yang perpaduan satu Malaysia and everything. Tapi kalau daripada awal lagi, sejak daripada sekolah kita dah pisahkan bangsa mengikut bangsa, saya rasa sampai kiamat pun kita takkan boleh. Ini realiti. Dan bagi saya, because saya belajar di sekolah yang saya bercampur dengan China dan India, saya faham. Minta maaf saya cakap, kadang-kadang kalau tengok statement kat TV yang pelampau agama lah and everything, saya tak setuju. Kenapa benda tu berlaku? Bagi saya, macam ada manusia yang bawa kepala lembu and everything. For me, that is too absurd, you know. You tak boleh buat benda macam tu. Sebab, I believe benda tu jadi sebab kita daripada kecil lagi, kita tak faham. Macam ni, kalau contoh, if let's say, Syed is not Malay, let's say dia Chinese, let's say, and they want me to be a part of Syed punya team, kita debate sekali. Waktu debate tak ada masalah because we plan together. Syed, whatever it takes, kita kena menang. But after the debate, after that event, what happened? Malay will always be with Malay, Chinese will always be with Chinese. That's why for me, I believe idea baru patut diberikan andai kata, sebab kita kena melihat masa dah sampai supaya apabila kita menyentuh mengenai national reconciliation, national unity, Melayu, Cina, India patut hidup sekali, patut belajar sekali dan patut bersama-sama supaya satu hari nanti mungkin sekarang kita tak mampu buat, tapi saya percaya insyaAllah in the future, and I believe in front of here maybe will be one day Prime Minister, Vice President or whatsoever. Please, I beg to you guys, in the future please change this, because we have to admit what is important for this country is national unity, and we have to start the unity, start from the beginning, start from the grassroots. Okay, thank you. Back to Mr. Moderator.
Okay, thank you Mr. Arif. Seronok bila boleh campur-campur sikit ni. Tak nampak macam very strict, very formal kan. So we need to make it a bit more santai. Alright, so it's a very good point from both of our speakers today. To summarize a bit, both of them share a common views on the topic. Means that those dasar that are good, we can improvise, try to make it suitable with what we're having right now, and also the cocktail method where we mix both old ideas and new ideas. We can correlate that both in the same place. All right. So the next question I would like to ask to Mr. Arif, because the next question is more towards him, because among us three, dia je seorang dah kerja. So kita orang dua belajar lagi. Jadi we don't know how qualification and experience would affect in the future. So the question is, in your view, between experience and qualification, which one would prevail, or a balance of both?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Actually, the answer is obvious. You need both. Because, face it, in real life, your qualification is like your first impression. Okay, let's say, when I first, after I finished my study, I went for job interviews. They know I'm a fresh graduate, so obviously they won't expect anything from me. But the first question will be, what is your CGPA? Where did you finish your tertiary education? That is the common question, which I believe all of you will face in the future. But we have to admit, experience is also important. In my case, okay, ni pun saya minta guna bahasa Melayu kerana lebih selesa kot. When I started work, even though I'm an engineer, I have a qualification, engineering qualification. Bila first day, I was called by my manager, and he asked me, Arif, do you know anything about this work? I said, no sir, I have no experience regarding this mission and stuff. And then, the first thing that he did was, he called a technician, my technician. So, Arif, for this 1 week, I want you to learn every single thing from my technician. Okay, so this shows here that even though you have qualification, you have to remember, in real life, in real society, both plays a prominent role. Like my case, you pergi kerja, tapi as fresh graduate, face it, you takkan tahu buat apa benda pun. Maybe you have 3 months, what we call it, internship, internship, but trust me, that 3 months worth nothing when you start to work. So bila I masuk kerja, first thing, I can still remember my technician teach me from A to Z. Come on, you can't tahu buat apa pun. You belajar, as my case, I was a chemical engineering major, but now I'm working in a semiconductor industry. Basically, 2 different things. So, bila you start kerja, the technician will guide you, teach you whatever it is necessary. But you have to remember, what makes technician and engineers are different is because you have qualification, and this is the way of thinking. Technician, let's say you give him one job, he will always do that particular moment, just play with the machine. But engineers, you have to think for other things. That is why the balance of both are important. Okay, I would like to give an example. Okay, fresh graduate yang habis university, habis matric, went to university, graduate in Bachelor of Engineering, dengan someone yang ambil sijil, diploma, dia kerja for around 5 years, sambung belajar. Dekat sini siapa yang dekat sini, who do you think can perform better and will able to do job easily? Yang mana, A ke B? B. Because there is reality. You need both. You tak boleh. Okay, and regarding to this is just my advice lah to all of you, because I know maybe I hear engineering background and stuff. Bila start kerja nanti, please be humble. Ni reality. Reality, most of engineers sometimes you are not humble. Macam you masuk kerja, you feel like you know better because you have a degree, because you graduate from one of the best school in the world. But reality, if you buat perangai macam tu, trust me, you won't go anywhere. It's about being humble, okay? It's about being humble. It's about ready to learn, and it's about able to accept what is your fault. Because normally engineers ni dia ada dia punya macam mana saya nak cerita ni, dia adalah dia punya yang rasa diri dia tu bagus sangat. Tak betul, ini reality. Tapi sebab itulah yang penting, kerana kamu kena ingat, if you don't work, you don't start your first job, you won't get experience. Betul tak? So during your first job, if possible, learn as much as you can. And during the process, you have to be good to everyone. Kawan dengan semua orang, jangan ada macam level-level. You have to be fair, kawan dengan semua orang, belajar as much as you can, because this will affect you in the future. Trust me, experience and education both plays a very vital role. Sebab kalau you ada education saja, you tak ada experience in working, you won't go anywhere. Betul tak? So both are very important. So for me, what is important during your work or your studies or anything, try to grab as much as chances learning as possible, because trust me, you might be needing it in the future. Thank you. Back to Mr. Moderator.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arif. That's a really nice and very good advice for us, those who are still studying in universities. Qualification is the first impression, and also the experience is we need a mixture of both here. All right, we're gonna go on to a much more heated up topic here. This one will be maybe gonna raise a lot of questions. So we're gonna open the last 20 minutes for questions, maybe 4 to 5 questions, and then we're gonna let the panel to discuss it. All right. So the next question I would like to ask Mr. Said here. What's the difference between legacy and chronism?
Thank you very much. Before I start, I need to make a defense lah. Kalau saya pun nak santai juga, tapi saya tak pastilah kalau orang Johor ada slang dia tersendiri. Tapi saya tahu kalau ada pun, ibu saya cikgu. Kalau ikut slang sikit je memang sentiasa akan diperbetulkan. Saya akan cuba cakap pasal rojak lah kalau boleh. Tuan Speaker, kalau boleh, before I answer that question, can I also support one thing which he said? I completely agree with most of the things which he mentioned just now, especially in the part of humility. This is something which I've realized throughout my days in RMC and also in IIUM. I think one thing which was drilled into me continuously in RMC is the fact that respect should never be forced. Respect should be earned. And unfortunately, especially in Asian countries, Oceania countries, and also in developing countries, often that's not followed up. It's the point in which force is the indicator of success, and which force makes you like who you are. And that's unfortunate. So contoh, kalau tengok dekat Malaysia, negara kita sendiri, kita sentiasa akan beri lebih respect. We will pedestalize people yang ada Datuk Seri, Tan Sri, Tun, without even knowing them. Prima facie, kita terus akan ingat mereka gempak dan kita patut ikut apa yang mereka cakap. Kalau kita tengok di universiti, begitu juga. Kalau kita tak panggil lecturer kita profesor atau doktor, kadang-kadang kita akan kena marah. Marah tu sampai lecturer tu akan ingat, inilah orang yang tak respect panggil doktor, tak panggil doktor, panggil nama je. I do acknowledge, macam contoh saya sendiri, kalau saya jumpa YBKJ, saya akan panggil dia YB juga. Tapi saya panggil dia YB bukan kerana saya kena. Kerana saya respect. Kerana saya respect je, kalau saya jumpa saya punya former boss, YB Nancy Shukri, saya akan panggil dia YB Nancy juga. Walaupun sampai sekarang dia akan suruh saya panggil dia auntie, tapi saya tak nak. Kerana saya respect dia. Ada sebab saya panggil ibu bapa, saya panggil mama, abuya. Kerana saya respect mereka. Tetapi respect itu tidak patut, it shouldn't be forced down our throats. And that's something which I completely agree with what he said, and I hope that most of us will be able to follow. Before I gravitate out of my topic, so what's the difference between chronism and also legacy. I think one thing, even if you look like in terms of the literal definition or the wordplay used here, I think everyone, I hope most of us would reach a common conclusion that a legacy, there's no like automatic negative connotation tied to it, because the legacy might be a good thing. I think most of us here would agree that Vision 2020 propped up by Tun Dr. Mahathir is indeed a good legacy in which he has taught for us Malaysians. But if you look at the word chronism, the word itself is automatically tied to a negative connotation. Because chronism means that in order for us to gain power, or in order for us to stay in power, we employ our fellow members who are loyal to us in order for us to empower a system of patronage. The creation of that power structure is contingent upon employing our cronies. But that's different from legacy, right? Because legacy, at the same time, you might also have supporters, but those supporters support you for your ideas, not because of, well, I force you to do so. If you do not do so, I will no longer employ you as my employee. I will fire you, or I'll no longer support your family, and all of those reasons. So I think that's a clear difference there. But I do want to make like one disclaimer here. Unfortunately, in Malaysia, chronism has often been misunderstood and always been taken out of context. What do I mean by this, right? Because at times, to some extent, the media, I'm not going to say whether it's the Western media, the Malaysian media, or Gulf, the media, at times would try their best to fill in unrealistic or non-existent dots to link a person to chronism. So one example, right? So I think both political parties, to some extent, are guilty of this. Like, in just the same way people try to paint YBKJ, the only reason why he's there is because, bapak mertua je, belah Badawi, apa lagi? Itu orang belah Badawi. Well, for the opposition, people trying to paint a picture, Nurul Izzah will never be there if Anwar Ibrahim wasn't there. Well, that's systematically untrue. Because even if we are to judge them for their qualities, again, I might share different opinions with you, but the point is, personally, I think that they're generally great people. But again, because in Malaysia, we highly fetishize the notion of chronism, and it's quite easy for any party or any side to take down a politician by painting that politician as a crony. Kan? Atau kalau kerajaan panggil apa? Orang macai. Ni, even I'm affected by this. Like, masuk Perdana Fellow, ada supporter kerajaan, opposition, terus masuk je, Sadiq dah macai dah sekarang. It's like, at that point I didn't even know what macai means. Okay. Dia boleh faham macam offended jugalah. So, you shouldn't like automatically fill in missing links or like links which aren't even there, unrealistic. The point is we need to make our own personal judgment, right? So I think that's the biggest difference between chronism and legacy. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Said. It's a really, really interesting point given by Mr. Said. The chronism, the difference between chronism and legacy, which has been stated by Said, is the, what we call it, reality that's happening here in Malaysia. All right. Right now, I would like to go to the next and maybe a final question before we open up the floor to more questions, because our speakers are eager to answer a lot of questions from people. All right. So this question I'm gonna ask both of the speakers here. The question is, corruption is public enemy #1, yet it still happens. So I think, Arif, how about your point of view?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Okay, actually we have to see this from a bigger picture, corruption. Okay, why does it happen? Sometimes we just blame the people for accepting bribery and stuff. But first, I believe we need to see from a bigger picture and go nail down to the core. Okay, for example, corruption. Okay, this is what my friend told me. Okay, sometimes you just talk with your friends and stories by stories. My friend told me about, let's say, this agency. Okay, I don't know lah, whatever you want to name the agency. One agency. The problem is you pekerja bawahan, okay, and it happen to be ada orang bagi rasuah in order untuk melepaskan, tak kisahlah apa saja awak boleh bubuh lah nanti, melepaskan tender ke apa semua. Dan apabila awak tak menerima rasuah tu, seolah-olah menjadi satu kesalahan bagi awak. Ini reality. And my friend, I can still remember dia beritahu kat saya why he changed job, because after 1 year, because he feel like there is not the right thing to do, after dia tak ambil rasuah tu, dia kena pulau, family dia tak dapat macam bila orang buat family gathering for office and stuff, dia tak dipanggil, promotion tak dapat, and even dia punya boss pun marah dia because dia tak ambil bribery before. See dia. This is one point yang whether we like it or not, happen. Doesn't care wherever it is, Malaysia, overseas, it happen anywhere. Okay, if you want to talk about corruption, one thing, punyalah, kalau sebagai contoh Indonesia, punyalah kita nak kata dahsyatnya dia punya korupsi tu, sejak nak masuk kerja ni, awak macam contoh saya ni nak minta kerja di pejabat kerajaan Indonesia, kalau saya tak bagi rasuah waktu nak hantar resume ataupun interview tu, maksudnya saya memang takkan dapat, wajib. Melainkan saya bagi rasuah, barulah akan ada peluang-peluang terbuka. Nampak tak kat situ bagaimana sistem is corrupt to the core. And actually in Malaysia pun benda ini berlaku sebab apa? Itu satu sebab. Dan yang kedua, maybe the temptation. Face it, kita ni manusia, okay? Macam if you put in front of you duit segelonggok 20 juta, let's say lah kan, takkan you just simply nak tengok saja. Tapi tak apa, insyaAllah kalau iman tu kuat, tak ada masalah lah. Tapi kalau iman tu tak kuat, ambil habis corruption happen. Jadi bagi saya, benda ni jadi sebab kerana masyarakat tu sendiri ataupun sistem itu sendiri. Macam mana kita nak ubah benda tu? InsyaAllah kita akan bincang dua lah macam mana. Lepas ni kita akan bincang bersama. Tapi saya percaya selagi budaya tu menerima rasuah dari bawah tu sampai ke atas tu tak dihapuskan, selagi mana temptation manusia tu masih ada, dan selagi mana kalau kita tak buat ambil rasuah, kita ni akan dicop, di blackmail, dan in the end we will end losing our job. Selagi itulah corruption akan terus berlaku. Tak kisah di mana saja. Tak kisah Malaysia ataupun di mana saja. Itu pandangan saya bagaimana rasuah itu berlaku. Mungkin saya tambah.
Kejap. Tapi ada juga soalan. Tapi kan orang bahawan tu katakan dia dah dapat dikenakan macam kalau kena bagi rasuah untuk dapat sesuatu benda kan. But then bila dia cuba pergi report that thing to pihak atasan tapi tak ada tindakan. So macam mana tu?
Itu yang masalahnya. Sebab tak ada tindakan. Bagi saya okay, in a way government lah. Government need to implement a more strong, a more brutal act, a more brutal in a way. Kalau orang tu buat salah, you have to punish. Kalau contohlah kita dah tangkap ikan bilis, kita kata, sampai ke bila pun takkan habis ikan bilis, in the end you matikan dia. If the boss is still there, you won't go nowhere. Betul tak? Betul tak? Jadinya apa yang penting, the government have to emphasize, kena kuatkan lagi undang-undang, bukan just setakat orang kecil-kecil ini. Semua kena tangkap daripada atas sampai ke bawah. Baru kita boleh selesaikan masalah tu. Itu yang pertama lah bagi saya.
Thank you. So, selesai.
Terima kasih. Kalau boleh saya nak jawab soalan tu juga. Dan kenapa kita tak boleh ubah sistem tu. Kenapa tindakan tidak diambil. I have two answers to that. The first, I think this answer relates back to my previous discussion, in which there is a negative entrenchment of that power politics. Macam contoh, sebab orang atas tak nak ambil tindakan, kerana the very people who are in charge of enforcing corruption are the very people who are also guilty of corruption itself. So the point in which they do report about this issue means that they are actually incriminating themselves as well. Sebab tu, like, the negative mutualism will be there. Kerana both parties tak nak. They will never rat on one another. Kalau orang atas rat orang bawah akan rat orang atas, dua-dua masuk jail. So dua-dua tak nak report. So the conclusion is, unfortunately, again I won't pinpoint whichever country, whichever instances, I think you can judge for yourself, but unfortunately, because of that negative power politics culture which exists, so both parties do not want to report on one another. And because of that, corruption pervades. I think the second answer to that is that whistleblowing in some countries are so difficult. When I say, like, the reason I'm stressing on it because it's so damn difficult. So like in Malaysia, right? Okay, no, I don't talk about Malaysia. So whistleblowing. So the reason why it's also difficult, because unfortunately, usually when young entrepreneurs or young politicians or young leaders, when they first enter politics, at one point in time, they will make that one single mistake. And because of that one mistake, they will have a bad track record, a criminal track record to an extent, which has yet to be disclosed. But their bosses and employers know about this, and they can use it against him or her. So the point in which I'm that person, and maybe when I'm 20, I might be young, but that still doesn't justify me committing a crime. I might take a bribe at one point in time. And people know about it, but the very people are also corrupted as well. So maybe when I'm 40 or 45, at that point in time, I want to genuinely eradicate this pervasive culture. But it's difficult for me to do so. The reason why it's difficult, even if I genuinely want to do so, because the people who I previously worked knew that I was corrupted. And if I am to combat corruption, well, something which I did back then will bite me in the... Yeah. Sorry, yeah. But that's it. So I think those are the two reasons why it's so difficult for us to eradicate the problem of corruption. But moving on corruption itself, right? Like, also to identify some of the common problems which lead towards this pervasive practice, to also add up to what Arif already said. Because the point in which corruption is culturalized in that country and so pervasive, before I move into this answer, I just want to see a show of hands, if you don't mind, and please do participate so that I can know. Who here has been a victim of corruption or knew or knows someone who has perpetrated corruption before, regardless of the scale? Corruption, bribe RM5 je, atau 50, atau to some extent even to contracts. Who here has been a perpetrator, knows a perpetrator, and who has been a victim of corruption? Can I see a show of hands? Yep, that speaks for itself, and I will not add on to it, but the fact is, the point in which a lot of people know that corruption exists in Malaysia and in our country, that means it becomes easier for future corrupt officials to be corrupted. The reason is, like, kalau orang lain buat, tapi tak kena tangkap, kenapa saya tak patut buat? Kalau corruption ni banyak orang praktis, saya masuk kerja, saya ingat politician A, politician B corrupted, walaupun saya tak tahu pun yang dia corrupted. Tapi the perception, the default settings that those people are corrupted. The reason why they are in power is because of corruption. So I'm forced to become corrupted as well. Because if I'm not corrupted, I'll be put at a massive disadvantage. The game theory. The point in which I don't act first, someone else will act, and I'll be put at a disadvantage. Right? So that will always be there. So that's, again, the unfortunate reality. So the point is that the point in which we see corruption, we hear corruption, and it's really hard for us to challenge that ideology, it becomes easier for people to buy into that corrupted culture. Because if I'm not practicing it, someone else will. And as a consequence, I'll be put at a disadvantage. That's why I'll practice corruption. But that also answers one of the concerns which Arif brought out, right? It's about, no matter how religious you are, no matter how self-righteous you think you are, but the point in which a lot of people practice it, it becomes easier for you to discharge your moral conscience, your religious beliefs, or your moral ethical qualms. It becomes really easy. Because I can easily say, like, yes, I'm religious. Yes, I'm righteous. Tetapi kalau dunia ni, kalau saya tak buat benda tu, macam mana saya nak kasih makanan kat ibu bapa? Macam mana saya nak tolong anak saya pergi sekolah? Orang tu buat, terpaksa lah. Ni equal so that I can equalize the playing field. So it's really easy for me to discharge my moral conscience, right? That's why if you are to look at most of the statistics published by the United Nations Development Index, if you look at countries with the highest level of inequity, economic inequity, those are the countries which are most likely to practice corruption. But if you are to look, so the best yardstick is to use the Gini coefficient here, the Gini index, right? The lower the index is means that inequity is less, the higher inequity is obviously higher as well. So if you look at Switzerland, Sweden, most of the Scandinavian countries in which inequity is less, corruption, the practices which are pervasive of there is far less in contrast to countries which has a higher degree of the gradient of the Gini coefficient. So that's unfortunate. The reason is, and I think this is also another reason, even if you're religious, it becomes easy for you to discharge your moral belief. It's because you'll always think that you deserve that money. That the reason why that money is not in your pocket, because other capitalists or the rich out there are there to go against you. It's unfortunate. It's that like class warfare. Like the reason kenapa constable kalau macam dia buat spot check akan ambil duit. Terutama je kalau drive kereta BMW lagi dia akan berhenti nak ambil duit. Unless kalau ada logo like I don't know, you might be an MB or politician or one of the royalties. Okay, tak apa, boleh pergi. Tapi kalau tak, BMW they'll stop you. And it becomes easier for them to take that money because they think that ni orang ni dapat duit ni bukan duit jujur pun. Ni dapat daripada tak tahu corruption mana, swindle mana, embezzling mana. It becomes easier for me to discharge my moral belief, the point in which corruption is practiced by a lot of people. I know most of us here already knows this, like, oh well, corruption is there. But then the next question is, how do we best remove that pervasive culture to ensure that people don't know? That's why I think I do also applaud the police force when they push for the integrity badge in which everyone wear it. I hope they practice it. I think to some extent, I think they have in comparison to the past, but still not up to the standard in which we should strive for. But that's there. So the point is, the point in which we correct that pervasive culture, it becomes harder for people to buy into that corruptive culture. So I think, yeah, that's generally my answer.
Alright, thank you, Mr. Said. Alright, kira macam like what Mr. Said cakap tadi, like kalau abang buat boleh, adik mesti boleh buat. So it's slow mo. So kita bagi Mr. Arif, any points to add?
Actually, I want to add something lah. Because if we talk about combating corruption, well, theoretically, easy. On paper, very easy. Tak payah bagi corruption, stop, blah blah blah. But in real life, it's difficult. Okay, actually, I want to share my experience back in Japan. Okay, back in Japan, integrity lesson was taught children as young as, kalau Malaysia darjah 1. But the problem in Malaysia, we never taught, we are not being, okay, at school, integrity lesson are not there. Why? First, we have to think about this. Why children are not being taught about integrity? Memang dekat rumah, mungkin mak ayah cakap, oh tak boleh ambil itu, haram, rasuah, haram. Okay. Tapi, reality, dekat sekolah, okay, reality, but cuma dekat tu saja. In real life, I believe, budak-budak patut diajar tau. Diajar dekat sekolah, apa jenis haram tu. Bukan cakap haram, oh ambil duit daripada segi. Kena jadikan satu mata pelajaran yang cukup hebat. Mata pelajaran yang dalam tu ada semua A sampai Z. Macam mana corruption tu berlaku and macam mana kita nak combat corruption. And siap list of corruption. Kadang-kadang orang tak faham. Kadang-kadang waktu zaman sekolah rendah, kadang-kadang contoh. Awak nak jadi ketua kelas. Ini sebagai contoh. Awak bagi ke awak 5 upang. Zaman tu 5 upang untuk undi awak. Itu dah corruption sebenarnya. Tapi budak-budak mungkin dia tak tahu, kata oh ni belanja kawan makan ya. Betul tak? Jadi benda tu kita patut implement sejak daripada kecil lagi. And I believe one thing. Okay, I know it may hard to implement in Malaysia and any other countries. Okay, back in Japan, if you are found guilty, whether you are politician or anyone, chairman of a big conglomerate country or anything, the first thing they will do, they will send their resignation and step down. But it doesn't happen. I don't know, in Malaysia or anywhere. I'm so sorry, maybe I know there are some here supporting the government or opposition. Face it, we all have our own political views. But I believe once you are being charged guilty, the next thing you need to do, you need to step down. Give someone else that are far credible to take your place. And I believe, okay, maybe because for our time, maybe it is hard to implement. But I know one thing, as future leaders, because if we talk so much great things, hari ni pun, for sure it couldn't be achieved, right? You don't just simply bring my discussion, me and Syed, to the parliament and simply, okay, esok laksana. No. But this is something that we need to ponder. As future leaders of Malaysia, we need to think, is the current system is okay or we need to change a little bit? I believe if kita boleh buat benda ni, if we can change what is wrong, let's say for an example, kita dah ajak daripada kecil yang corruption tu salah, bribery tu salah, even skupang sekalipun salah. Saya percaya satu hari nanti, mungkin zaman anak kita, cucu kita, hopefully kalau tak boleh banyak pun kita boleh reduce the fact. Sebab face it, you want to reduce 100%, you want to kill off the problem. I believe it's very difficult. You don't just simply kill off the problem, right? But As time goes by, maybe we can start implement with our family first. You nak implement dekat nation, susah. You just simply, who are we? Tiba-tiba nak pergi cakap dekat Prime Minister, oh kita have to implement this. Tak boleh. Tapi, we start with ourselves first. That is what important. We start with our family. Ayah, mak kena ajar anak-anak tu betul-betul. Integrity tu, what is integrity, what is bribery, apa pun tak boleh. Pada masa yang sama, kalau kita mengajar anak kita benda tu, for sure kita pun kalau nak buat benda tu akan malu, betul tak? Takkanlah kita nak ajar anak jangan ambil rasuah, sedangkan kita pun ambil rasuah. Mana boleh benda tu? Betul? So I believe in the future, sebab face it, kalau kita cakap sekarang pun, it won't happen. But in the future, hopefully when, you know, either one of you turn out to be someone important to the nation, try to change. Try to bring changes. Yang kita tak boleh buat hari ni, make sure that our generation coming, let's say our grandchildren, could at least feel the reality, could at least feel what it is to live in a perfect world. Hopefully. Okay, back to Mr. Moderator.
Okay, thank you, Arif. Alright, so right now, we have roughly around 30 minutes into the end of discussion. Saya tahu semua pun dah lapar. Saya pun lapar kat depan ni. Alright, so I would like to open the floor to questions. You can ask any type of question regarding the topic. Please state your name and where you're from. And also please the question please be concise, short, and also please hormatlah everyone. Alright? Okay, thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Where are you? At the back? Alright.
And very good morning to everyone. Saya Muhammad Azrai, former student from UiTM Melaka and now working. So about continuing legacy, macam kita tengok sekarang, first discussion tadi kita cakap tentang siapa betul, Melayu betul, Cina betul, India betul. Kita buat satu sekolah, kita hapuskan UiTM, kita hapuskan sekolah jenis kebangsaan. And this legacy of debating which race is right and wrong dah lama lah, daripada since kita merdeka sampai bila-bila lah. Sebab kita bukan future leaders atau kita bukan future of Malaysia. We are Malaysians, and kalau kita tak bentuk hari ini siapa kita hari ini, then 50 years of Malaysia akan still macam ni kalau kita masih dengan mentality kita. So why not? Sebab kita nampak sekarang ada perdebatan tentang kita semua bangsa Malaysia dan kita hapuskan kaum. Tapi betul ke? Sebab it is history, sejarah. Kita ada bangsa Afrika, kita ada bangsa Melayu, bangsa Cina, bangsa India. Why not kita just acknowledge kewujudan semua kaum ni, because Malaysia terkenal dengan pelbagai kaum. Kita bukan satu kaum. Kita jangan tipu diri kita, saya kaum Malaysia. Saya bukannya kaum Melayu, saya kaum Malaysia. Tipu, itu semua memang betul-betul tipu. Why don't we just acknowledge kita semua memang berasal dari berbagai kaum dan agama, tapi kita letak Malaysia sebagai kita punya hala tuju, satu tujuan untuk membuatkan kita semua boleh bersatu, bukan atas nama sebab okey lah. Satu example, contoh kita cakap pasal bangsa Malaysia. Okay, sorry. Okay, so itulah yang saya cuba nak tanamkan dalam kita. Just acknowledge kita semua ni dari pelbagai kaum dan bukan satu kaum Malaysia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For this session, saya akan ambil 5 questions and saya akan kumpul semua question and then kita akan discuss. Alright, the second question please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Saya Muhammad Rifhan Hafiz bin Roslan daripada Universiti Tenaga Nasional.
Sorry, your name?
Muhammad Rifhan. Rifhan. Okey, sebentar tadi saudara Syed Saddiq ada bercakap mengenai, saya ulang quote tu country with the most corruption has the biggest equity according to Gini Index, right? Okay, talking about equity, what is your opinion about double standard in Malaysia? Okay, saya cakap Melayu balik Okay, double standard dekat Malaysia. Okay, kita dapat tengok isu-isu yang major isu yang patut kita lagi beri perhatian, macam homeless and HIV, prostitutes, and these issues endless. They're endless. So whatever, for until now the government hasn't solved this problem. For me to say that in Ramadan semua orang akan pergi ke anak yatim, and masa only just for Ramadan orang ingat golongan-golongan macam ni. Instead of bila nak buka sekolah, tak ada orang ingat pun. Bukan tak ada orang, but sikit. But in Ramadan sampai benda tu sampai jadi pembaziran, beras sampai rosak. So for me is to say that double standard in Malaysia is a major issues. Okay, we can see around the marriage of the elites. Okay, we can see them bila buat majlis only the VIPs come. How about the minorities, about the homeless, the fakir miskin? Okay, that's the issue I want to raise. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera semua. Nama saya Muhammad Nur Hakim bin Nordin daripada Universiti Tun Hussein of Malaysia. Soalan saya tajuk pasal implementing ideas, new ideas. Jadi dalam nak berjana ideas perlukan ilmu, pemikiran yang kritikal dan juga pengalaman. Soalan saya kepada Amir ataupun Syadik. Bila you berada di Perdana Fellow, sejauh mana idea itu diimplementationkan di peringkat negara? Dan soalan kedua saya, bagaimana kalau kita ada idea, kita nak implementkan, tapi persepsi negatif yang diwujudkan masyarakat sekeliling itu membantutkan idea kita, dan adakah hebahan dan penyampaian dalam kita nak implementkan idea tersebut yang membuatkan kita tak dapat capai apa yang kita mahukan daripada idea yang kita buat itu. Terima kasih.
Okay. Question number 4, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, nama saya Muhammad Amsyar bin Aziz daripada International Islamic University. My question is specifically to Syed Sadiq. Okay, because he was explaining just now about legacy and chronism. So my question is regarding, can you provide me a solution or give me a yardstick regarding the idea of legacy? Because as far as maybe more than, I'm not the only one who is concerned here, but more than everyone else, the question here is, legacy always creates a vicious cycle where in most circumstances, people assume that someone close to the leader is the best one to continue that particular legacy in comparison with an outsider. A situation will be if one person who is not related at all to the leader versus or juxtapose someone who is related to the leader, people will most likely believe or give authority or give the position of power to someone who is related to the leader, because people think that, oh, he knows the leader, therefore he's the best one to carry out that particular legacy. Thank you.
Thank you. So the final question, I'm so sorry, it will be a final question.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nama saya Albak Yunus.
Sorry?
Albak.
Albak.
Yes. Bukan Albak, Albak.
Albak.
Okay, saya daripada KMDC. So soalan saya nak tuju kepada saudara Arif. Sebab Arif ni mungkin lebih Arif kan. Sebab dia study dekat Tokyo. Di Japan lah kan. Okay, sebab sebelum ni saya pernah lihat ucapan awam kamu di majlis apa? UMNO. Ucapan awam kamu. Public speaking memang very power lah. Okay. Okay, tadi you ada task tentang qualification and experience, right? So sekarang ni saya go through to experience and question. So saya ni dilahirkan, mendapat pendidikan awal di SJKC, Sekolah Cina Kebangsaan. So pendidikan awal saya bergaul dengan orang Cina dan saya mendapat pendidikan dari mereka. Tapi saya melihat perbezaan sekolah kebangsaan dengan sekolah Cina, silibus dia sama. Tapi yang membezakan dia adalah bahasa. Dia mengajar dalam bahasa Cina. So dari situ saya melihat perbezaan dia dari aspek core curriculum. Sebab sekolah kebangsaan more relax lah. Dia orang balik 1-5 minit dah balik. Tapi kami 1.40 kami dah 1.40. Maknanya ada penambahan masa kat situ sebab kelas tambahan diwajibkan pada setiap pelajar. So mereka memberi penekanan tentang matematik tau. Matematik. So orang Cina ni dia suka calculation. Sebab dia orang ni daripada segi pemikiran dia orang ni material view. All cost. Okay, daripada situ saya sambung sekolah kebangsaan lah kan. Sekolah menengah. So memang sekolah menengah ni relax. Memang sangat relax lah. So bila okay, lepas tu sambung ke IPTS. Saya sambung IPTS. Saya tak masuk IPTS, saya masuk IPTS. Saya tengok silibus dia berbeza juga dengan IPTA kita. IPTA sebab saya tengok kawan-kawan saya banyak relax. Sebab bila dia orang mindset dia orang, bila keluar je dia orang nak kerja government. So IPTS punya mindset, kita bila keluar dah habis final year tu, kita macam, saya punya experience tak tahu. Tak tahu kat sini ramai kat IPTS, saya tak tahu kan. So kita orang punya final year, kita orang kena buat company sendiri. Survive. So daripada segi pengalaman saya, tahun 2012 saya mewakili Malaysia ke Korea dengan 15 delegate. So dalam 15 delegate tu ada Chinese group lah, dalam 3 orang. So yang buat saya terharu yang buat saya terharu dengan Chinese ni, sebab bila kita pergi ke lawatan ke
sorry saya tu cut short cuba get to the point boleh? Sorry. Minta maaf sangat-sangat. Kita ketutup masa sebenarnya.
Okay. Saya nak, sebab yang ni story yang paling penting sebab kita belajar satu benda. Sebab kita tak boleh diskriminasi bangsa Cina tau. Kita ni satu Malaysia kan. So dekat Korea tu. Okey, jap. Ini penting tau isu ni.
Okey tak? Boleh tapi lajukan sikit.
Okey, dia ni cikgu Cina. Dia berjumpa dengan daripada pelancong Cina juga. Tapi dia orang berbahasa Malaysia. Dia orang berbahasa Melayu. Kata, let's we talk in Malay language. Our language. Faham tak? So isu sekarang untuk Arif tadi ada idea tentang untuk satukan sistem tu kan. So apakah cabaran dia? Itu soalan dia.
Itu yang kita mau. Yeah. Itu dia. Okay. Actually soalan tu interesting. Okay, baguslah. Okay, so kita ada set soalan, 5 questions yang agak mencabar. Jadi tak apa, saya start dengan question 1 dengan Arif dululah. Nama Arif banyak sebutlah tadi. So tentang since merdeka nanti bila-bila, acknowledgement of bangsa tu, racial acknowledgement tu. Silakan.
Soalan nombor apa ni? Okey. Acknowledgement bangsa. Okey, bagi saya itu penting. Kerana kita hidup dalam satu negara yang ada pelbagai jenis bangsa, Melayu, Cina, India. Tapi okey, kalau kita relate balik sekolah satu bangsa, satu Malaysia, tak semestinya kita kena hilangkan terus identiti. Saya percaya satu benda yang baik, macam tadi saudara Albab tadi ada cakap yang dia belajar bahasa Cina. Saya duk terfikir sampai sekarang lah, kenapa waktu saya sekolah rendah dulu, okey, saya tak diberikan peluang untuk belajar bahasa Cina. To be honest, saya agak macam bila dah tua dah 24, 25 ni saya fikir agak, kenapa tak diberikan peluang? Saya percaya bangsa ni kita kena hormati satu sama lain, kita kena terima satu sama lain. Kita tak, because to me tak ada pun yang lebih superior. Melayu ke Cina, India, we are on the same level. That is one thing. And second thing, kalau berdasarkan sekolah itu sendiri, saya percaya kita kena, dasar tu banyak kena ubah. Bagi saya, kita boleh buat satu-satu, tapi kalau boleh lepas ni mungkin bahasa Cina dan bahasa India diajar juga pada bangsa Melayu. Dan kurikulum syllabus daripada sekolah Cina tu kita integrate dalam sekolah kebangsaan. Sebab saya percaya there is a good option untuk capai matlamat kita dalam memastikan bangsa ni boleh hidup sekali, percaya satu sama lain, dan pada satu hari mana tahu saya pun boleh cakap wah ini ke, wah shiny ke, whatsoever. No, to be honest, saya agak jealous tau. Even though saya boleh cakap bahasa Jepun, Nihongo dekiru kara, tapi pada masa yang sama, saya pun nak cakap bahasa Cina. Betul tak? Sebab benda tu bagi saya macam seni. For me, language is an art. Tu bagi saya, yang penting integrate sekali. Apa yang diajar di sekolah jenis kebangsaan, kita masukkan sekali supaya rakyat Malaysia mendapat pendidikan yang sama semua. Dan mungkin juga pada masa itu, cikgu-cikgu kebangsaan ni, cikgu sekolah kebangsaan, boleh belajar daripada cikgu-cikgu sekolah jenis kebangsaan. Dan sebab kita dah satukan, jadi saya percaya dengan this innovation, boleh melahirkan Malaysia yang lebih dahsyatlah bagi saya. Melayu boleh cakap Cina, Cina boleh cakap India. Siapa tak nak benda ni? Saya nak, kalau ditanya kepada saya, kalau boleh satu hari nanti saya nak anak saya boleh cakap bahasa Cina dan bahasa India. Itu harapan saya lah. Terima kasih.
So again, to address Muhammad Azrai, if I'm pronouncing your name right, concerns about the racial battle for superiority. Firstly, I have to personally disagree with the call to abolish races, although trust me, I know how problematic that is in Malaysia, but the reason being because the comparative is far worse. Like, ask yourself, race, religion, ideological belief, basically every single system of belief which we subscribe to is your identity. The point in which you are fine with abolishing race, it is akin for you to abolish religion, because religion is an identity and it governs your way of life. It is akin for you to abolish the familial system, because that's your way of life as well. It's akin for you to do not believe in any political belief, because if I'm a Republican and I see being a Republican equivalent to being a person in a Malay race, it's similar. But the point here, identity is something which we often affiliate ourselves to, and that does not mean that we should automatically eradicate it. But I will agree that the fight to maintain racial superiority is something which is unequivocally wrong. So the example is like, if we are to implement a race-based policy, the justification should never, and this is my personal opinion, should never be that our race is better than theirs, that we were here first, and therefore we deserve our rights. The justification should be, like what Tun Razak did propel forward, the justification should be to alleviate poverty which is systematic to that particular race. In just the same way, how most Western countries would justify protecting aboriginals in just the same way how they protect women by providing quota in parliaments and the corporate sector. Not by saying that women are inherently better. Like, my mom will agree to that, my dad will be forced to listen to it. But it doesn't mean that that should be the justification. The justification should always be that these people are disenfranchised and we should assist those people. It shouldn't be that we are at the top and we should maintain at the top. Kalau nak buat gitu, siapa nak ikut? Lagi orang marah. Dan sebab itulah nanti kaum lain nak combat kita juga. Kalau diorang boleh buat, kita pun akan combat lah. Reverse discrimination. Nak masuk corporation saya, tak boleh. Ada kerajaan nak tolong. That's the exact problem. So the point, the push for racial equity and like racial equality can only happen at the point in which we challenge that. Just to show like one example to show that the abolition of race is actually counterproductive. If you look in Indonesia in the 1960s, under Sukarno, in which like he tried, like kalau orang Cina nak guna nama Cina pun tak boleh. Kena juga guna nama Indonesia. Tapi look what happened. Racial strife, civil disunity happened at that particular moment. Look at Eastern European nations, the Balkans. Masa tu, kena juga guna nama sama. You need to share the same culture. They want to eradicate your culture, yet genocide happened there. Crimes against humanity. Well, all the racial problems came up the point in which you challenge their identity. So the best way, or the middle ground, again, which ties back to the topic, is to always create that cocktail solution. Sounds nice. Is to always reach that common conclusion, which is to always find a middle ground. Don't abolish it, but just because you are from a certain race does not mean that you need to subjugate the race of another. Yeah.
All right. So now I'd like to go to the next question by Mr. Khan. It's directed to Mr. Said. The question about double standard. Right? So are you going to try? Okay.
Actually, this problem, I believe, mostly happen in Malay society. Am I right? Why? Sebab kita ada mentality yang mana, contoh bagi case tadi, kenduri kahwin kan, VVIP untuk VVIP, itu sebenarnya dah implant dalam diri kita. And this is something yang, to be honest, nowadays you cakap nak buat, you takkan boleh buat. But everything have to go to you and your family. Kena start balik benda ni. Face it, to be honest, sometimes we feel like macam, why on earth you pergi makan kenduri, but they are separate. Okay, this one just because he is VVIP, he got to get special food. And ni commoner makan makanan biasa. To me, it's not fair. Because you nak buat kenduri, it have to be balanced, equivalent to everyone. Not just VVIP, you bagi kat VVIP, orang susah bagi kat orang susah. And pasal tadi dia cakap pemaziran and everything. Itulah berbalik pada mentaliti Melayu. Mentaliti Melayu ni, oh waktu bulan puasa sajalah nak buat amal jariah kebaikan, waktu itulah nak bagi sedekah and everything. Why kita tak buat benda tu on daily basis? If let's say right, this corporation are very rich, why don't you do this as an weekly or monthly basis punya activity? But the problem is, bila time hari bulan puasa, itulah at that time semua nak pergi bagi sedekah, time tu semua nak tunjuk aku ada banyak duit, aku boleh bagi kat orang. For me, it's the Malay mentality, something that we need to change. Because kalau kita duk still ikut yang belakang, Kita takkan ke mana? Berbalik pada tadi ada soalan yang pasal Melayu nak kerja government. To be honest, should be our parents' mentality, not on our side. Come on, face it, you ada degree, you pergi belajar jauh, takkan you balik just simply nak kerja government. Hello? Okay, kalau nak kerja, no, it's not that, it's not that I'm saying it's wrong to work for the government and everything. Well, it's a good thing, but you have to have long aim. Okay, for example, I work in a company where I have Chinese friends, Indians and everything. To the Chinese, they work, I don't know, because they said to me, we only work 5 to 10 years, makan gaji, and then we will try to open up our own business. For me, that's a great thing. Why Malay you still have mentality, and then everything keeps blaming the government? I'm sorry to say, even though I'm not saying I support the government or oppose the government, but their time has come. Why, especially when price hikes and everything, face it, who wants price hike? Even I myself hate, why the hell I need to pay before this petrol 190 now to ringgit 10 cents. But you have to see on a bigger picture. Betul tak? Kalau kita still dengan mentality lama dulu, mentality mak ayah kita, kena kerja kerajaan, sampai bila pun takkan berubah. Kita kena ubah, kita kena buka kepompong. Sebab tu bagi saya, why I always stress on national unity sekolah sekali? Because I was there. And I know there are things that, even though let's say I support this party, when it comes to racial issue, I never say anything because I know if I say that thing, I will hurt my friend's feeling, which is my friend. There are things that you need to understand. That's why for me, time has come for Malaysians to be together, to unite together, so that hopefully Malay could change something that, for me, what is not good, we try to change. Maybe for me, it will always be for our children in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arif. Right. Okay. To address Ridwan's concern. Apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right. So in terms of double standard, firstly we need to look the root cause of double standard. I personally believe, and this is I think I read one of the books. Double standard is rooted by the fact that human beings are inherently selfish creatures and always want to pedestalize themselves and their family. So ask yourself, like, no matter how ethical and religious you are, to some of you, or to most of us, unfortunately, like, we like having a PhD, we like being called a doctor, we like being called a Datuk Sri, Tun, Tan Sri, because that differentiates us from them. It tells people that we are better than them. And because of that, that means you will have a perverse incentive to perpetuate that culture, to always differentiate yourself from them, so that you are always at the top and you're always at the bottom, right? Unfortunately, that's the culture in which, I'm not going to bash capitalism, we can have another session about that, but that's the culture which still persists to exist. So in terms of identifying a solution, I think to some extent the government is implementing this, and again, is implementing this. So in a couple of ways, i.e. redistribution of wealth, when it comes to its different tax codes for different economic groups, so i.e. if you earn more than 50,000, tax code is higher, lower, depends on your family, the number of your family. All of those are good because it genuinely means that the reason why you are rich is not purely because of your skills. At times, if you are rich, you send your kid to one of the best schools in KL apa? I'm going to say RMC because I like RMC. You send them to RMC, and then in that particular school, they'll mingle around with the rich kids. Networking is built around over there. It becomes easier for them to join Oxford University and Cambridge University because of that networking, because of your parental privilege, because of the money which you have. It inevitably means that the cycle of poverty which you establish is indeed there because of that culture, right? So the best way to eradicate that is to ensure that there's a radical redistributive economic policy to ensure that people who are inherently disadvantaged at the bottom, who cannot enter the best schools, cannot pay for the best education, healthcare system, cannot get the best of tutors, will be able to climb up the ladder, if not as fast, but at least slightly below the rich. So that must be there. In terms of wastages, I think everyone would agree that's a bad thing. Obviously, we need to eradicate some of the bad cultures, a lot of those. But one thing should add on, I do compliment the disclosure of the AG's report, which clearly showed like there were a lot of wastages which are ongoing in the government, which will hopefully eradicate. At least this is a new move. Although it has happened before, but this is the more prevalent one which people can easily relate to, and that's a good thing. But obviously now the next step is not only disclosure, the next step is to weed out all the element of wastages, which I hope will happen. But in order like to answer your question, so that if you ask me, the solution is to create a more equitable redistributive system. Yeah.
Alright, thank you, Mr. Said. Alright, now we go to the third question by Mr. Hakim. Okay, so, sorry, would like to start?
Okay, direction of ideas. Actually, bagi saya masa untuk berfikir sekejap.
Dia ada idea, tapi persepsi orang tu kebakar idea tu jatuh.
I'll answer first. So this is for Hakim, right? Like, what has the government done, or something like what would I do to generate more ideas for the youth in the future? And in terms of implementation, when it comes to generating ideas, again, firstly, should be an ambassador for the Perdana Fellows. Join the Perdana Fellows. Like, there's a couple of reasons why it's actually a good thing and would also answer your concern. Because in terms of generating ideas, it's also one of the reasons why Perdana Fellow Foundation was established. It's also to get ideas from the youth and to automatically direct it to its respective ministers. And that's something which I've learned a lot under, so I'll share my personal experience. So, in terms of generating ideas, prior to my participation in this particular group, I generally thought that it's a top-down system. Like, generally, whatever the ministers want, the ministers can get it. No matter what the Prime Minister wants, the Prime Minister can get it. It's as easy as that. It take 2 or 3 days. That's it. But that's untrue. Because when I follow YB Nancy Shukri, there were a couple of policies she wanted to be passed, a couple of discussions. Like, she had to negotiate with a variety of groups, from all NGOs, Amnesty International, and a lot of NGOs. And on top of that, after that, she'll need to get permission from the Jemaah Menteri. We'll discuss there, and then we'll still need to consult each and every single respective minister in which portfolios are involved, and they must go to the Prime Minister's office. A lot of barriers. But that's where the generation of ideas will come from, because it's not like our ministers are self-absorbed, conceited, think that they're always right, self-righteous, and they can implement whatever they want. It's untrue. But again, I can't say this for all ministers. But that's there. But at the same time, unfortunately, that's not always the case. Like, if you look at the passing of the Prevention of Crimes Act, the Penal Code Amendment, at times, like, the discussion was really short, and some groups were systematically ignored from the process. And that's bad, and obviously we need to remove that. The point is the procedures are there to generate ideas, but we need to make those procedures the general rule in contrast to the exception. In just the same way, when I attended the rationalization budget talk, in which even the opposition think tank was invited. That's good, but we need to make that the general rule. So that's something which is there. Also other things, right, which I also want to compliment on. I think obviously there are a lot of ways for us to implement and generate ideas. I'm complimenting on current ones and what we can do in the future. So also, like, when you look at the opposition, when the opposition set up a website in which inquiries can be posted and then they'll automatically respond to it. That's also a good thing, and the government is following on that ground. In Justice Lima, unity talks, I hope, will be taken up by YB Najib, right? So these are things in which are there, but in which we need to pressure our politicians to follow, to ensure that it's not a self-absorbed system which is oblivious of the reality of the real world. So in order for that to happen, we shouldn't make it an exception, but we should make it the general rule. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, back to the question, idea, how to implement your ideas. For me, actually, it happened both ways, the government and the student as well. Because I know, as young students, as young leaders, you have so many good ideas, brilliant one. You want to change, if possible, Malaysia. You want to implement things that you think others could not implement at other world, but could implement at Malaysia. But to me, what is important is for the government to set up a scouting system. I'm sorry to say, but reality, after this, okay, you may be MPP, president of student bodies and everything, but after you graduate, macam mana you punya engagement with the current one? Okay, waktu you university, yes, you have help from the HEP and everything. During president of UMNO Overseas Club, you have help from the ambassador, from the kedutaan and everything. But after you graduate, when you come back to Malaysia, that is the problem. Because not everyone are privileged enough to be, maybe his father is somebody in politics, maybe he knows somebody. Face it, that not everyone have that privilege. So I believe the government should take action so that young leaders, as in front of me, will not go away and disappear just like that. Face it, system has to be made, scouting system. Let's say if Albab, About now is the student leaders of whatever it is. Upon graduating, there must be a system that makes sure about is a part of the government, a part of the think tank, so that ideas from student leaders could be transformed into policy. I believe, because what I see now is that upon graduating, when you start working, people just simply, even you yourself won't have time to do things like this. That is why I believe the government should set up an institution or a policy or anything so that our future leaders are being trained well, groomed well, and being prepared. Because face it, okay, this is actually maybe an idea hard to implement. During your university years, I believe in front of me are student leaders, MPPs, and everything. Okay, as a student leader, it's okay because you are being elected by the one in your university study place where the level of thinking are almost the same. Am I right? Kind of same. But in real life, after graduating, you will meet all sorts of people, and that is the time when sometimes you are not fit enough to be a leader. And that is why I believe government should do something in order to polish this one, not just being leaders at university, but preparing them to be leaders for Malaysia. And I believe if this can be implemented, in front of me, one day I believe YBs, MPs, or any YBs, MPs, Prime Minister, Minister will be born, and this kind of person will have good ideas that can generate Malaysia to be one of the best countries in the world. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Arif, for that answer. All right, for the fourth question from Amsha, I summarize the question. Is legacy always right to chronism? So I'd like to ask Syed to answer this question.
Testing. So the logic to his question was that chronism is inevitably tied to legacy. Because if you are to push your legacy, you will often employ people who are closer to you, who understands your policy better, who knows you better, because that inevitably leads towards a greater outcome. I disagree with the logical link there. Because just because you like a legacy, and obviously in order for that legacy to persist, you need to ensure that that legacy is a benevolent, good policy. If not, people will not follow it. If Vision 2020 was horrible, like why would Malaysians support it? The point in which people support it clearly shows that it is a good policy. So the best way to debunk that link is to parallelize my answer to the corporate culture, right? If you're in a corporate world, like the appointment of the CEO does not always have to be from the same family, does not always have to be from the same field. When Howard Schultz was appointed to become the CEO of Starbucks, well, before that he had no affiliation with Starbucks at all. If you look at a lot of CEOs today, at times they generally have the same belief, which is that we want to ensure that this company will become the best company. So the same here. You don't need to be the crony of Tun Dr. Mahathir in order for you to propel Vision 2020 forward. No. You just need to like Vision 2020, you need to know Vision 2020, and you want to improve it. At the end, it is ideas. It's what's determined the path of legacy. It's not like who you employ, it's not about like cronism. Because cronism, again, is always tied to a negative culture, because the point in which you appoint someone who's close to you, well, maybe that person might know you, but that person does not know what Vision 2020 stands for. That person is not an economist, does not know how to push Malaysia to become a high-income earning country. So that just because you are a family member does not mean that you specialize in that particular field. So it is, you can divorce those two concepts together. But again, in matters of practice, that might not always be the case, and that's why we're here. We need to always find solutions for us to remove that, and that's why we need always, again, pressure politicians to ensure that does not happen. But it is divorceable. The point in which we say that it's not divorceable, that is what will institutionalize that culture. That's when we genuinely believe, like we should actually just appoint the son. The son tahu dah tinggal rumah sama, pergi visit setiap raya, tahulah. But that's not necessarily the case. That's why we need to ensure that we do not believe in that myth. We need to demystify that myth. So yeah, but thank you very much for that question.
Okay, answering question number 5. The challenge, to be honest, is going to be one hell of a challenge, because face it, there are still groups that doesn't want to abolish, let's say, vernacular type education. This is, to me, the challenges are very great. That's why it is important to instill understanding. To be honest, if we don't understand, okay, I don't understand about other races, how am I supposed to talk about other races? So it is important at first, government has to do something about this. To be honest, if you ask me to do anything about this, I can't do anything because I have no power. So, because I always believe, okay, let's say for PLKN, 3 months program, the objective, one of it is to instill national unity. But face it, does that objective or goal is achieved? Frankly speaking, no. Because we still 3 months, what can you do in just 3 months? Face it, even if you start working, your first month will be the month where you know nothing. You went there, go to work, do the same all report things where you also don't know what you're doing. But after that, then you will start to realize. That's why I always believe it's about us, okay? It's about us. You don't expect people from nowadays to simply understand that. You don't expect leaders nowadays that if they have this kind of thinking that vernacular system is a must and we have to, whatever it takes, protect it and defend it. Okay, this is this kind of people. But as future leaders, that's why I believe as future leaders, your mind has to be different. If you still think like our parents, like our grandparents, then what is the use? Then we are still the same. We are not generation Y, we are not generation Z. We are just the same generation as our grandparents. Simple. And then we talk about syllabus. That's why I always emphasize, you need to make sure there is a collaboration between Sekolah Kebangsaan and Sekolah Jenis Kebangsaan, because I believe we can learn so much from other races. As for me, okay, I'm a Malay, but at the same time, during my school years, when I mixed with the Chinese and Indians, I learned so much about how their culture, their working ethics, and everything. So, to me, challenge will always be there. There will be a resistance. There will be someone that say, why do we need to abolish? This is what we have been doing for the past many years since before independence. But I believe if we still want to combat this problem, back to the core, whether we like it or not, that is one of the options. If we don't choose to make sure the Chinese, Malay, Indians live together, learn together, do things together, learn about cultural things together, we won't go anywhere. Trust me, we won't go anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I think I got like 2 questions. I'll try to summarize it with one answer. So when the challenges are great, how do we best tackle controversial policies which might gain some form of social inertia? So again, to quote example, like abolishing vernacular schools. In order for this to happen, again, we need to identify why the inertia is there, why it's so difficult for us to abolish it, and why it's also why is it so sensitive? So in order for that to happen, again, I generally believe that good policy means good politics. The point in which you can justify the policy well, it means that your voters will also support it as well. But again, unfortunately, that's not the case now. So when you look at vernacular schools, again, the reason why, and this is again my personal belief, which I've diagnosed, I think after meeting up with a lot of my friends who genuinely believe in the existence of vernacular schools, I think the reason why is because we're living in a highly racialized country. The point in which race is continuously pedestalized, that race becomes your primal identity, even on top of other identities, right? So any even small challenge over your race is automatically seen to be a challenge over your identity, your personhood, your who you are. It's like, one example, like in France, in which Muslims aren't wed to wear the niqab, right? So they see that as a challenge against their identity, like, oh my God, I'm going to hell, like this, sakitnya. So it's the same thing there. The point in which we live in a highly racialized country becomes virtually impossible for us to bring down or even touch on any race-based issue, right? So at times we can't even discuss about it. And unfortunately, and this is a fact, the reality, that censorship promulgates sensitivity, right? And again, I will make a disclaimer. I'm not saying I'm all for hate speeches, and that's different because hate speeches automatically mean that civil strife will happen and all of those. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't even at least discuss about it in at least an intellectual forum. There must still be that, right? Because the point in which you do not discuss about it does not mean that that issue will just be gone. It just means when it does come up, it will come out on the streets, it will come out in a more violent way, so the comparative is far worse. So I think in terms of tackling controversial policies, it must always be a systematic process. Again, it must be a gradual process. I think that's something, if you look, the government now is always a gradual path. Even the opposition is taking a gradual path as well. So like, that's what he proposed, i.e. you must start when you're young, through your familial system. So generally, once you grow up, you no longer see this as a sensitive issue. It's like, the reason why we're doing this is not because we want to strip you away from your culture, no. The reason why we're doing this is because it makes economic sense, social sense, generally from a rational perspective, in contrast from an irrational one. So I think like, that will be my solution to that. But obviously one more thing, right? Like the reason why it's also very difficult for us to challenge it, because there are a lot of pressure groups which do not want us to challenge it, right? That's why when we tried to shift BM to English, there were a lot of pressure groups which happened even in KL when they were on the streets. Also, the vice versa, when we wanted to bring down vernacular schools, I think there were 3 events in which people on the streets for this to not happen as well. So like pressure groups will always be there. But if we Malaysians genuinely believe that that's not the right path, we should also vocalize our opinion. That's why I'm absolutely proud to live in an era in which AUKU has been brought down. Because I can finally speak, that my voice is no longer muzzled. Political apathy is what makes situation far worse. We want it to change, but we're not doing anything, and that's unfortunate. If we want it to change, we need to vocalize it. Call our members of parliament. Or if we can't call our members of parliament, find a way. Use it, go towards the ballot box and vote, not stay at home. So again, if you agree that you want to do something, then act against it. Don't expect that your members of parliament can read your mind, I know what this person wants. That's untrue. So, 2 things. First, if it's difficult, always believe that good policies will lead to good politics. And secondly, political apathy is bad. That's my personal belief. Yeah, thank you very much.
Actually, I just want to add something, one matter. Okay? Actually, the problem is with Malaysian is because we are too biased. I'm sorry to say, but reality, if you support, let's say I support the government, every single good things being done by the government are considered as bad. The same happened to the opposition. So I believe time has come, okay? Time has come as future leaders of Malaysia. Please, for me, time has come where we have to think for our nation. We have to think for our race, Malaysia, which is, I believe, Malaysia. And we have to do things that will actually benefit each other. Because if we still with the mind, let's say, I won't listen to any of his explanation, let's say, I'm in party A, Sai in party B. Even though Sai is doing good thing, implementing right ideas, I will always bash him for no good reason. Face it, we always bash other people for no good reason. Because sometimes we don't actually understand the issue, and because we have been like implanted. If someone is different from you, that one is definitely wrong. So I believe as future leaders, you should have, this kind of mentality where someone that opposes you are definitely wrong. We should abolish it from our mind, and hopefully one day we can be leaders that will lead Malaysia into a better country. Thank you.
All right. I sense that a lot of people actually want to ask a lot more questions. So I would like to open up 2 more questions from the floor to ask to our panelists here. But please, the question, please be short and concise, and please be clear. And state your name, please. Thank you.
Okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama diberi Khairul Ikhwan Vizul Kifli daripada UiTM Terengganu. Okay, soalan saya mudah. Apa yang saya nampak Gen X dan Gen Y dan juga Gen Z minat politik tapi tak suka join politik. Apa yang saya nampak sebab as a future leader, politik one of the most important thing lah yang kita kena tahu. Nak tak nak kita kena tahu juga. Salah satu sebab kenapa diorang tak nak join politik kerana anggapan diorang politik tu kotor. Sistem politik yang ada sekarang tidak sesuai dengan jiwa dan mentaliti generasi zaman sekarang. So saya nak minta pandangan lah daripada pihak speakers tentang suasana politik pada zaman sekarang dan juga cadangan untuk encourage the new generations untuk join politik. Thank you.
Terima kasih. And satu lagi soalan yang terakhir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
My name is Muhammad Farid Muhammad Fatil, and I'm from UiTM Terengganu. And I want first, pertama sekali saya nak cakap, yang kita tahu yang rasuah ini tidak bagus. Kita cakap di segi sekular ataupun dari segi agama, rasuah ini tidak bagus. Dan Soalan saya, is it possible rasuah ini mampu diatasi rasuah ini mampu diatasi ataupun mampu dikurangkan pada masa akan datang for a better nation. Sebab kita tengok sini rasuah dah macam benda biasa. Saya takut benda yang salah apabila nampak biasa dia akan menjadi betul. Dan apabila benda yang betul, apabila dia nampak pelik, dia akan jadi salah. Jadi soalannya, is it possible for corruption to be destroyed or just mengurangkannya? Itu terima kasih.
Okay, terima kasih. Okay, sekarang ni soalan yang pertama daripada abang kita Ikhwan. Generation Y ni dia minat politik tapi dia tak nak join politik sebab kotor lah dan macam-macam persepsi yang mereka ada. Ini macam mana tu?
Okey, soalan ni sebenarnya agak menarik sebab melibatkan Gen Y, saya pun sekali Gen Y. Okey. Macam mana nak encourage young people to join politics? Pertama sekali, perspektif tu, kalau perspektif tu dah salah, macam mana kita nak teruskan? Contoh, saya pun sampai sekarang tak faham kenapa kita always nampak politik tu kotor. Kita cuma melihat daripada satu segi politik itu kotor, tapi kita tak melihat pada segi yang politik itu mampu untuk mengubah negara. Memanglah kalau cakap kotor, jangan kata politik yang besar. Kalau politik zaman sekolah pun dah dahsyat dah, kotor lah. Tapi kalau kita ni as future leaders tak masuk join bermain sekali dalam padang permainan tu, macam mana kita nak ubah negara tu? Kadang-kadang it's easy. Macam kita, it's easy for me to say, oh, I bangkang lah because of blah blah blah. Cakap mulut memang senang. Tapi why don't you go inside there, play the game? Memang susah. Sebab kita dah diimplant yang politik dekat Malaysia ni terlalu kotor. Betul tak? Kita dah diimplant because sometimes maybe based on our readings and stuff. For me, niat tu. Bagi saya niat tu penting. Kalau betul awak nak ubah Malaysia, you want to see changes, you have to start. You kena masuk, play the game. Kalau perspektif kita masih sama ditakut yang lama politik kotor, politik tu merosakkan, sampai bila-bila pun Gen Y ni takkan masuk politik, betul? Dan saya percaya yang ada depan saya ni memang minat dengan politik. Sebab tu kadang-kadang kita ambil jadi MPP lah, presiden lah, apa semua sebab kita minat. Kita nak bawa idea kita dan kita cuba nak ubah apa yang sebelum ni mungkin bagi kita cantik ke tak cantik. Betul tak? Ini realiti yang kita harus terima. Jadi bagi saya macam mana nak encourage join politik ni? Yang pertama, kalau daripada segi kita tu sendiri, bagi saya bakal pemimpin tu dia perlu buang perspektif yang negatif dan dia kena letak niat dia, saya masuk ni sebab saya nak ubahkan perubahan. Saya masuk join politik sebab saya percaya saya boleh ubah Malaysia satu hari nanti. Itu yang pertama. Dan yang kedua, mungkin parti politik tak kisahlah kerajaan ataupun pembangkang boleh buat, mungkin bagi macam saya cakap tadi lah, set up scouting system supaya bakal-bakal pemimpin ni yang minat. Kalau dia pandai cakap politik ni, kadang-kadang jujur saya cakap, kalau pandai cakap politik maksudnya dia minat politik. Kalau yang pandai komen harga naik, harga turun dan sebagainya, maksudnya dia tu pandai pasal politik. Dia tahu, dia ambil tahu. Jadinya maksudnya macam ni kita patut ambil. Government patut train supaya mereka ni satu hari nanti habis graduating, kiranya dah, even though dia masuk dalam professional life, dia boleh masuk ke politik and in the end orang tu mampu untuk mengubah Malaysia. Kalau hati dia tu masuk niat tu dah bersih, saya percaya dia takkan buat benda-benda yang tak elok. Terima kasih.
Thank you again for that question. Saya ada 3 jawapan kepada soalan anda. Pertama, if you agree that politics in general is dirty, sitting by the sideline does not make it clean. Again, that's what he said, as I mentioned before. Political apathy is what drives up that corrupted culture, right? In a way, the point in which you know that you have the skills, that you are capable, and you are passionate to change our country for your own interest and also for the community interest, and you know that unfortunately we are blighted with this problem, but yet you choose to just sit by the sideline and do nothing. Unfortunately, those people, ourselves, we are complicit of that corrupted culture. We know it's there, but we just choose to stay out of it. And keep in mind, I think most of us have heard this line: if you do not change politics, politics will change you. Because whether we like it or not, we are living in a highly politicized world, right? So being politically apathetic does not make situation better. Joining it and recalibrating the process from the inside is what changes the system. The second reason why this is so critical, again, for most developing countries, there will be people who are genuinely passionate, who are conscientious, who are good and benevolent, and always have good interests. But there are a lot of us, but the people who join politics are only a few. So once they join politics, in the vast majority of cases, they are always outnumbered. And the point in which they are outnumbered, they cannot challenge the system internally. If you can't challenge it, you are forced to join that corrupted culture in order for you to climb up the ladder. But if all of us here today genuinely believe that our country is, to some extent, practicing dirty politics, and all of us choose in our own way to fight against that culture, to join politics, and band together to challenge that culture, we form a critical mass. We are no longer like in a minority, we are in a majority, and that's where we can challenge the system. But if we don't do so, our brothers and sisters who are benevolent, who are good, will be sacrificed while fighting that project. So that's the second answer to that. The third one, even if you do not want to join politics, and even if you think like, okay, fine, I do not want to become an MP or Dewan Rakyat for Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara, still, it doesn't mean that you are automatically politically apathetic. You are still a voter. You still have a voice. You still have, I'm pretty sure, I'm judging most of us are youth, you have Facebook, Twitter, a lot of social networking sites. Vocalize our opinions. Because whether we like it or not, our members of our MPs must listen to us. Because, well, them being in power is contingent on us supporting them. So vote, vocalize your opinion to whatever forums you have, and just make sure that you become an agent of that change regardless of the impact which you can bring. So maybe your voice might not be that big, but collectively your voice will be strong. But if you do not speak out first, and generally most of us share the same mentality, that's what we call it, the collective action problem. If I do not bring it up, other people do not want to bring it up, and a lot of people do not bring it up, it's highly culturalized, and nobody wants to bring it up. It must start somewhere. The point in which most of us here, who are student representatives, prospective leaders, if we all band together, bring this up together as one voice, then it will work. But if no one stands up first and takes that risk and challenge, then again, the first person who does will be sacrificed. So yeah, that's my answer to it. That.
Okay, actually, I just remember, because just now, to be honest, okay, you want to join politics, but you feel like it's hard, okay, it's hard, maybe the channel are different, difficult for you to find your own spot and everything. I don't know, because just now I just talked to my friend, and he said about, why not join? Okay, please, don't judge me, okay? Why not just join and you volunteer? In a way, it's not that I'm supporting the government, but if let's say you want to change, okay, you don't want UMNO, you don't want MIC, you don't want MCA, join Barisan Nasional Youth Volunteer. I know, okay, maybe I hear not very keen to my idea why you should join VN Youth Volunteer and stuff, but it's all up to you. If you want to join VN Youth Volunteer, just join whatever the opposition has. It's still the same. Each of party has their own recruiting system, has their own system. So why not? If you feel like it's hard one way, there will always be another way. So in my opinion, BNYV is actually a good move for young leaders to train their leadership skill, and hopefully these young leaders will end up being a true leader for Malaysia. Okay, that's it, my opinion.
There's one more thing to add, right? Firstly, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, because we actually acknowledge that there's a problem. Like, we know that there's a problem, that to some extent politics is dirty, not to some extent, most of the extent it's dirty. And we acknowledge that there's a problem, therefore it becomes easier for us to find solutions to it. But just to contextualize it to Malaysia, and this is again my personal opinion, the point in which we do not acknowledge there's a problem makes it difficult for us to change that problem, because there's no problem to begin with. So like, I know through mingling around as under Perdana Fellow, discussing about politics, so if you look in a specific case of YB Saifuddin, right? So he was pushing forward and propelling the platform of politics baru. And most of the people like, apa politik baru? Politik lah, apa lagi nak diperbaharui? Tak ada benda yang nak diperbaharui. I was like, kau biar betul tak ada benda yang nak diperbaharui. Like, we know a lot of things which can improve on, but yeah, people are like, oh, no, there's no problem. The point in which we deflect the problem means it becomes more difficult for people to resolve it. So the reason why I say Alhamdulillah is because at least we acknowledge that there's a problem. It is a step to success. Might not be that, you might not be there yet, but at least we acknowledge that there's a problem. So again, like, speak up. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Syed. Okay, now for the final question. Is it possible to reduce corruption or overcome it completely. So this is going to make it a bit short, right?
Wow, is it possible? To be honest, if you want an honest answer, it is possible, but hard. Because it all starts with us, okay? We don't, if this current system is this, if nowadays the corruption is, let's say, too bad, you can't do a thing, but the issue will always be the same. It will always be you in the future. If nowadays it's still like this, I believe in the future, if we change, let's say we adapt to new ideas, we adapt to our family that corruption is no longer needed, I believe we can reduce. Frankly speaking, you want to abolish 100%, you want to destroy 100% corruption, it's difficult because it's already there, right to the core. But in order to reduce it, we can start with ourselves, our family. That is my idea, because frankly speaking, 100% you want to destroy the corruption, it's impossible because it's there in the system, whether you like it or not. But as for ourselves and our future generation, hopefully we can reduce to the extent that one day no more corruption is in this world. Thank you.
The fight to eradicate corruption is aligned with our fight to eradicate economic inequities. As I mentioned before, again, most of the reports published by IMF, World Bank, and even respective governments, even if you look at the Gini index, countries which record the highest amount of corruption are countries who also suffer from economic inequities. So whether it's possible or not to eradicate corruption completely, that's obviously really difficult, but not implausible. So again, the best way to push my forward through an existing example, if you look in Africa as a continent, right? If you look at Nigeria from 1980s till 21st century, when Nigeria was blighted with corruption, Nigeria was also blighted with economic inequities. Generally, the rich were unbelievably rich, and the poor were generally lived at wages of 20 to 30 USD per month. But when President Good Hope Jonathan, if I'm not mistaken, took power and started to privatize the oil fields, and money started to be redistributed back to the people, and then the corruption level reduced significantly till the point that both IMF and World Bank were more than glad to provide more support financially towards Nigeria. But generally the conclusion, again, if you compare Nigeria to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, and all the other countries which still suffer from economic inequity, these are countries which record the highest level of corruption. So generally, if we are, the fight to eradicate corruption is a fight for us to eradicate economic inequities. And in order for us to eradicate that, obviously it must come through institutionalizing government policies of redistributing wealth. At the same time, it's also the fight in which individually we can take up. Make sure that we assist our friends who are impoverished. If possible, do our own altruistic work. If we do not want to give money to them, at least we'll be able to teach them. Teach them in whatever way which you're good. If you're good in sports, then teach them to play football. If you're good in debating, then do free debate classes. Do whatever you want. But the point is, the fight must not only come through governmental institutions, but must also come through your own altruistic mean. But the fight for corruption might be difficult, but it is not in any way impossible. The final thing which I want to say is that, again, one of the negative culture in which, fortunately, our country is going through, whenever there's a corruption scandal, a corruption case, often the defense which is put forward, or one of the defense, if not the most important defense, is that, alah, kalau kita corrupted, nanti kerajaan tu pun kalau masuk office, corrupted juga. The defense is, if we are corrupted, other people are corrupted as well. If we are corrupted now, the point in which we step down, the other person who steps into power will also be corrupted. I hope we never believe that. We should never align ourselves to that system of belief. Because that's akin to victim blaming. Alah, tak apa, kita boleh buat, it's fine, it's a culture. So do not ever believe in that. Because the defense should always be, how do we best prosecute this person? How do we best move away from corruption? Not by deflecting the solution, by saying that other people will practice it as well. As fellow Malaysians, if you believe that corruption is something which should be evaded, then take up arms, not arms, in a theoretical way. Start vocalizing your concerns. Make sure that it is there. Don't be politically apathetic. Again, I'm using the word apathetic a lot of times because we need to ensure that we are vocalizing our concerns. No matter how difficult it is still possible as long as we unite together.
All right, with that, I would like to say thank you to our speakers today and those who asked questions. Give them a round of applause, a very loud one. Thank you for them joining us today to discuss a really, really good topic. And I hope that every single thing that I discussed today in the hall will be beneficial for us, future leaders, so that we could drive Malaysia towards the vision of 2020. I, Muhammad Farhan bin Yunas, would like to say good luck for your future and see you again next time. All right. Thank you very much. I would like to pass back to the chairperson.
Thank you to our speakers, Mr. Arif Yasir, Mr. Said Sadiq, and Mr. Farhan Yunas for sharing their interesting and in-depth view on the subject. Now, we would like to call upon Muhammad Izzat bin Abdul Halim to present our token of appreciation to the speakers for sharing their ideas with us today.
Thank you, Muhammad Izzat. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a break for lunch and Zuhur prayers.